Hello and welcome to the Yggdrasil podcast. I am your host, Ratatosker. Today, I'm happy to have Bandit Games and Monster Maze joining me. Thank you for coming, fellas.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I've got to do a better way of introducing it when there's multiple people because they both want to do it at the same time, and there's like, should I go first? Should I go second?
It's okay.
Yeah, and then we just end up talking over each other, but it's all good. Mr. Don and I sometimes call for 3 or 4 hours at a time, so it's really nothing new.
True, yeah.
So I was, we definitely are going to get into Tears of the Kingdom, and that's the main focus, but I feel like that and talking about that and maybe complaining about that is going to eat up most of our time. So I thought we'd start with the Zelda movie and what you guys think of that, since that's a lighter subject and we can get into it easier.
Oh yeah, I'm totally down for that. Also, quickly want to acknowledge the 25th anniversary of Ocarina of Time, my favorite game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Today.
Happy birthday, Ocarina of Time. Yeah, that's got to be my favorite, not just Zelda game, but my favorite game of all time as well. So yeah, that's it. Today is a great day. And about the Zelda movie,
Is it actually today? Today's the anniversary?
Yes, today exactly.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Yeah, Ocarina is my favorite Zelda game as well.
Oh yeah?
First game I ever played, actually.
You already gained points there, so good job. This Mr. Don was testing you actually.
So Ocarina of Time was your first Zelda game or just game in general?
First game I ever played.
Oh wow, damn! You can join my
We've
brother
got to
then.
be.
For him, it's the same
We've
deal.
got to be kind of similar in age then, because I'm in the same boat. Ocarina of Time came out when I was an infant, but it was what my grandparents, or actually my grandpa, really liked to play. So I couldn't hold a controller on my own, but I was playing Ocarina of Time. So it's like, I have these very formulative life memories, and I don't know how healthy this is, but it is what it is. But I have formulative life memories of just running into walls as Link in Ocarina of Time. So I think it takes a bit more than just calling it nostalgia to explain exactly what it means. But anyway.
Yeah, I have similar experiences. It was the first game I played, so I was too young to really. This is the thing about Zelda games. They're made for children, but they're not childish. Is how I would explain it. Especially Ocarina of Time.
That's a good way.
How I like to talk about it is there's a lot of children's books that are really good stories. Even if they're not complex, you don't have to have a complex 1,000-page book to tell a deep and meaningful story, and I think Ocarina of Time did that for me. And you don't have to really get it intellectually to experience that depth. Ocarina really hit me in weird ways that I still think about today.
Oh yeah,
that's a really good way to put it. Sorry, go on.
I mean, most of that, there's videos out there that explain all the subtext of Ocarina of Time, but obviously that went way over my head when I was 11, 12, so I wasn't as young as you guys, and it wasn't even my first game. I've been playing since the NES, SNES. I think Super Mario Brothers, the original, was my first game. Very original for someone my age. But it was the first game where it felt like because I was used to 3D games at that point because I had been playing Mario 64, GoldenEye, those types of games. But they were more like classic games where you still had a level select screen or a hub world and everything was segmented. It felt more like video gamey at the time. And Ocarina of Time was the first game I ever played, at least, that was really it felt like you were part of something bigger. This big interconnected world where things you did actually mattered. Everything you did felt important, even though you didn't necessarily understand all the stuff that you were doing,
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's actually a good thing. I'm kind of jealous that your first experience with the game was when you were, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. That's not exactly the age of a philosopher, but
No.
I think it's old enough to connect to, more. I think both of y'all's takes on the game is it's just very neat to hear, because I can definitely relate more to Ratatoskr, because it's like that's the thing about Zelda games classically. You like you said, you don't need to like really think about it that much. It's simple, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's like simply amazing. But they've also always been crafted to where the more you want to dig into it, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, it's bottomless.
Yeah, it's bottomless. I mean, Majora's Mask is, I think, one of the best examples of that. And that was in the same era.
I like to compare it to so the Zelda games are like, especially Ocarina of Time, but and the games that came after that, but they're very simple heroes' journeys, but there's a reason why heroes' journeys have lasted as long as they have, and so for example, I mentioned children's books like Dr. Seuss or that one about the caterpillar, the giving tree,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Classic children's
Oh
books.
my goodness.
The original
that's
Hobbit.
like nostalgia just hitting me
Yeah.
square in the face.
Yeah, like these are classic children's stories, and they're long lasting. And there's a reason why they're long lasting. It's because they have a simple message, and the simple message resonates across a wide range of humanity. Like a lot of people will hear that, and it'll stick with them. It's like, it doesn't matter that it's a children's story and that it's marketed and targeted towards children, and that the story's simple. It's still deep. It's still deep. You can tell that it's still
Right.
deep because of the wide-ranging effect it had on people.
Oh yeah, people often confuse complexity with something like being a more competent story, whereas that's just not true at all. You can have very, very simple stories that are very effective. It's more about how it's told than it is like how many twists and turns it takes. Sometimes it can be very good. A movie like Memento, for example, made a lot of impact back then because, oh my God, the movie is actually being told backwards, and it resonates with people when something is original in that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like any simpler story than that is inferior to that, if that makes any sense. And Ocarina of Time just kind of embodies that. It's like, yeah, it's about a kid who stands up to an evil wizard and eventually wins but you can boil like you said, most of those children's stories, those simple heroes' journeys, you can boil them down to something very simple. Lord of the Rings is about a kid or a guy, actually, he looks like a kid, but is a guy with a magic ring, and he has to throw it into a volcano, and then we all win. But the complexity is in the characters and in the beauty of the world and how it's fleshed out. But the overall narrative is very simple, and it works.
Well, the complexity is in the question of why the Eagles didn't just take him to Mordor.
Oh my God, no, not again.
Just kidding. But no, I love what you said there, because case in point, I don't know if I'm gonna isolate myself with this opinion, but I feel the exact same way about stories like Attack on Titan, for instance. I don't know if you guys are into anime or into that show in particular. It's very, very popular, and I know that it just ended, and it ended on, from what I hear, a very high note. So this is really just my own thoughts on the show. But when the show was just coming out, it was like the greatest thing I had ever seen.
Huge. It was huge.
So it was huge, and for me personally, it was that very concept. It was very simple. So slight spoilers, obviously, but like episode 1, right? The Titans attack, and it's horrifying, and it's devastating, and then we have that scene of Eren Yeager like slamming his fist into the side of that boat and just looking back on his town and saying, I'm going to kill every single one of them. And it's like, but you see what I mean? It's simple. That's very, very simple, but God, did that grip me.
No, yeah,
I was so... Sorry, what?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you talked. Like, I love episode 1 and 2 of Attack on Titan. I don't know if I love the whole show. I don't, actually. I don't love the whole show.
Well, on that point, actually, I was going to say, when it started getting... And I'm going to say political, and I don't mean real life political. I mean like political in the show.
Right.
You know, like, oh, the history of this family and the history of that family and the history of, well, we tried to silence this group of people, so we made this strain of blah. I don't even remember because it started to lose me.
Yeah, I could see how that that wasn't really the problem for me. It's just that the high notes were so high that it made everything else look weird and okay, so like the first episode, like I totally get you. I think the setup for the first episode of Attack on Titan is probably the best out of any anime I've seen, because it's okay. So
for sure,
so you have all of this symbology, like just symbolism, not symbology. You have all the symbolism. So you have these great walls. You have these great walls keeping out the outside world, you know. And the Eren and Armin are like, we can't keep these walls like this. We have to venture out into the outside world, or we're going to stagnate here. Like, the walls aren't going to protect us forever. What happens when they break down the walls? And the people are like, they're never going to break down the walls. The walls are keeping. Look how orderly everything is. We don't need to. We don't.
That's not foreshadowing at all.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then like they come in and they break down the walls, like with something that they couldn't expect, like something that the walls weren't designed to stop. And so
yeah, it was unprecedented.
Yes, yeah. And so they bust in, and like the chaos of the outside world like slams into it. It's just horrifying. These disgusting titans. It was magical, really. Like I really felt like religious sentiment looking at that first episode of Attack on Titan.
Oh, for sure, like religious level. You know, everybody just became paladins. You know, just holy knights that were like, all of the giant people must die. You know, and so we all, you know, myself included, of course, just rallied behind Eren. But anyway, I mean, like, I brought that up just to say, like, a simple story, because, you know, how hard is that to understand? It's not difficult at all. It's very, very simple.
Yeah, your walls got broken into, and you know.
Yeah, your family was killed in front of your eyes. Everybody has a family. Everybody can relate to that.
I think another good example, at least for me, which also kind of segues into the Zelda movie, since we're also getting a movie about that soon. Or is it a series? Yeah. I don't remember. But Avatar, The Last Airbender also has a very simple premise. You know, evil nation rises up. The guy is the chosen one. He has to collect all the different elements. And, you know, let's just say it's one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite animations of all time.
I just went through it.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's so amazing.
For the first time.
And it's not necessarily complex at all. It's just the world itself tells its story in so many ways. The humor is on point. So, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with that, with the whole live action stuff, because we've been burned before with M. Night Shyamalan.
See, I never saw the Shyamalan movie. I've just read countless takes on it that all sound the same.
I mean, all I had to do was look at a trailer and be like, that's not for me. I don't think I'm even going to watch the new one. But if I hear overwhelming praise for the new, I guess it's a series, live action series.
Oh yeah, it's a series. Yeah. Then
I'll take a look, but like I have no hopes for that. It's just I'm not a live action person.
So, am I crazy, or do I seem to remember that recently they said they were going to continue the stories of the main characters in a new show, animated. But I don't know. Like, you see a lot of stuff on the internet. I don't know if that was... Yeah, if you guys didn't see that, then I probably either hallucinated it or just saw some...
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I did, but I have like a general distaste for anything Avatar related after the initial series. Like, I don't even like Korra. I can't watch that.
You know, I hear that a lot as well.
I can't watch that shit.
My brother... my brother tried to watch it, and he says the same thing.
Yeah. Well... I couldn't say what the quality of the show is, because I've never watched Korra either. It's just it was a closed book for me after that.
Yeah, for me it's like
wrapped up so nicely.
Have no need to taint my good impression of Avatar. Like, it's done, it's over. Like, there's no way they're topping this. Like, I don't have to engage with this story anymore. They're only going to ruin it.
Well, there are a lot of people out there in the Hollywood scene and the gaming scene that just don't believe in sequels for that very reason. They believe that if a story's good enough, then you make it, and that's it, and you move on to the next project, whatever. But money does talk, and so in a lot of cases, it's like, well, we've got to continue the story. We've got all these fans.
Yeah. I mean, there's also been exceptions where the second one was even better than the first one. Terminator.
Oh, it's true.
Being a good example.
Yeah, I don't think that all sequels across the board are bad. I mean, look at The Legend of Zelda. I mean, that's that's kind of a blatant
case in point.
Case in point right there. But I think that it really just depends. I think that in some cases people are obviously just making sequels to capitalize on, the heat of the fan base currently or whatever. Without necessarily passionately crafting a deserving extra story.
Yeah, and that's also where we come to adaptation stuff. Like the movie, we've had a plethora of video game related movies that have failed horribly. We've had a couple of good ones lately, a couple of good series as well.
I liked Castlevania.
Yeah, the Castlevania series is very good. The Last of Us series was very good. The One Piece... Oh, that's not a video game, sorry. One Piece series is very good. But, adaptations in general, it's always... It kind of depends on how... Like, with the Silent Hill movie, for example, which is a live-action adaptation of a beloved franchise, I always thought it was good. Not necessarily from a filmmaking perspective. I don't think the guy who made it is the best director, but it is a movie that you can appreciate as a fan, and I think that's what the movie was intended to be. It's a movie for the fans by a fan, because he himself is the one who tried to get Konami to relinquish the rights to make a movie. So he really fought for that for years because he's a big fan of the... And I don't know what it's going to be with the Zelda movie. It's kind of hard to say. Some of the names involved, I'm more enthusiastic about than others. Like the producer, I'm not a big fan of that guy. But he's just a producer on the other hand. So people give credit to producers a lot more than necessary when it comes to the final product of a movie. Like the producer is just the guy who... takes care of the funding and the scheduling and all that kind of stuff.
Technically speaking, it does depend. Because sometimes they
do
have very hands-on producers.
Well, there's also directors who also act as a producer, so they're wearing two hats. But most of the time, a lot of producers in general in Hollywood are just the guys who they actually hire the people who they think will make the movie happen, make the movie possible. And in that regard, I don't think the choice of director for the Zelda movie was the worst choice they could have made, for sure. I think Wes Ball, he hasn't really proven himself to be a mainstay just yet. I think that's also going to depend on how the new Planet of the Apes movie is going to turn out, because besides that, he only did the Maze Runner trilogy, which, granted, it's a good trilogy for what it is. But he doesn't really have the credentials just yet,
That's true. And, I mean, far be it from me to judge somebody on their past work when they're trying to take on a new project. I mean, YouTubers who are trying to branch out and things like that can kind of relate, right? They, can kind of relate to be like, hey, don't only pigeonhole me into what I've done before. So, like, I get it, and I don't want to pigeonhole this director before I've even seen a trailer. But on the flip side, it is the Maze Runner.
So
sorry, but
I didn't see the Maze Runner. I honestly don't. It doesn't matter to me what the director's history is. Like I'm just completely negative. Like I'm just completely. It's like it doesn't matter. Like what you guys are, you're crazy. You guys are crazy. I feel like a lot of people are just trying to be like. I feel like there's this positivity going around towards it, and I'm like, no. We don't need to do that. Like, we can start now with the negativity. We
start the negativity now. Set the trend.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I kind of liked the Mario movie. a little bit, but it's because
Oh,
it's like I don't really care that much about the Mario movie. Like that they can't do anything to Mario to damage it in my eyes. I care a little bit, and I wanted it to be carefully crafted and not damage the brand. But like for Zelda, I care about Zelda a lot. You know, I care about Zelda a great deal, and if it's Mario movie level quality, I'm just already done. Like I know I don't want to see that. That's already a failure as far as as far as I can.
so I am curious. You say Mario movie level quality. Are you talking in terms of story?
Yes.
Like storytelling?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the animation was fine. The animation was great. All
Yeah.
Well, if only we were getting an animated Zelda movie.
yeah. If it was an animated Zelda movie, I'd be more hopeful. Everybody says this. Like everybody talks about the studio. They should have a Studio Ghibli type thing because because people have fond, beautiful feelings about Zelda stories and games. You know, and so they're like they associate it with something like Studio Ghibli. I actually think we should have a Metroid animated movie, but Metroid.
God, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, but the Metroid animated thing or series or movie should be not like Studio Ghibli, but like Samurai Jack. It should be like Samurai Jack, where
Interesting.
Where
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah, it's Samus is enters a planet, and minimalistic storytelling on how minimalistic dialogue, a lot of walking, like a lot of scenes, like the way that Samurai Jack does, showing Samus walking across the various biomes of different planets. That's the kind of thing I would enjoy seeing for that.
I think that would be so cool. And on the Metroid note, I am, as many other fans of the series, I've been on the edge of my seat for years, just waiting for Nintendo to like give Samus a bit more of the spotlight. And I think Metroid Dread's release was kind of a little taste of that. Like I think for a little bit they even changed their Twitter page pictures and media and stuff to Samus herself and Metroid Dread to promote the video, and it just felt so good to see Nintendo believing in Metroid as an IP. Because I am of the opinion that they've kind of slept on that franchise for a couple decades now. I mean, Metroid Dread is the long awaited sequel to Metroid Fusion. It only took them 11 years or something like that, or
I think it's
14 years. I forget.
If I'm not misremembering, I think it was like 17 years.
17 years. So yeah, literally you could have had a baby born when Fusion was released, and they would practically be an adult.
Yeah.
By the time the sequel came out, like that's insane.
It kind of feels like Nintendo is treating Metroid the same way Valve is treating Half-Life. They only want to put out something if it actually adds something, if it's good enough. Hence why they canceled the last. They just started from scratch because there was like
Metroid Prime.
Yeah, Prime 4. They were like, nope, it's not good enough. Sorry, that we're gonna. How many studios
They
would
fire
actually
the studio?
I admire that. I admire that. That's great.
I do too, and I admire the fact that they told everybody about it too.
Yeah,
it's like no.
They did not have to do that.
I made an absolutely terrible game. We're starting from scratch. We're getting Retro Studios back. We're starting over. Sorry, fellas.
Well, I was always very skeptical when they announced that Retro Studios was not crafting Metroid Prime 4. It was just, that never sat well with me. But, it's like, okay, well, it's Nintendo. At least it'll have the Nintendo polish, right? Apparently not. So, I am actually relieved that they went back to Retro. Of course, that was 4 years ago.
Yo, where is my Metroid Prime? Like, at this point, it's going to be a next console, like, cross-gen thing.
For sure.
I did think about, like, that thought did... Of course, everybody clings to whatever hope they can think of, right? But that thought did pop up in my mind that maybe Metroid Prime 4 was being delayed to be put on the Switch successor, because everybody seems to be convinced that the Switch is getting a successor soon. I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
Well, I mean, they skipped the N64 in favor of the GameCube too for Metroid Prime.
True. That's very true.
I'm sure we are getting a Switch successor soon, just because it's ancient. It's old as fuck.
It is ancient.
Is it? It's
Yeah.
like 6 years or something like
It's
that.
about to be 7,
About to be
which is
7?
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But like, I really like the Switch. I don't. Excuse me. I don't really have a problem with my Switch. I just want. Honestly, if they just gave me another Switch with more power, like with modern technology that somehow magically made it like the Steam OLED, a Steam Deck kind of powerhouse of a system, like I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Same.
I think that it kind of feels like the Switch hasn't been out for that long because, I don't know. There are many standards for consoles these days that Nintendo themselves set up. The Wii U was not very popular, but as far as a console is concerned, it was a powerhouse. You could do anything with that thing. You could play all sorts of games on that thing. It had YouTube, Netflix, you name it, Hulu. It was your entertainment center. It was, obviously it had this concept that didn't work very well with the whole gamepad. But I mean, you can't really knock them for trying something. And then of course the Switch comes out, and it's not so much a home entertainment system as it is. It's your game console. I mean, it's got YouTube on it, but you play games on the Switch.
They wanted to merge the whole handheld with their, because they always had two systems side by side.
Right. But because of that, we've got still the basic black and basic white themes for the Switch, and that's it. It just, there are a lot of things with the Switch, features and concepts and whatever, that I think Nintendo thought about, but just never really capitalized on. And so for a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, things like this are probably coming in the future, and then you blink and it's like, what? It's been 7 years? Oh, all right. It's already time for another console? Okay. So yeah, I think, people are just kind of in stasis with the Switch, I think, which is why it's kind of shocking that it is as old as it is.
What I would like...
but I think that,
what I would like is Metroid Prime 2, like, remastered. Like, they gave us the Metroid Prime 1 remastered already, and I'm like, okay, now give me the other 2. If you're
It's gorgeous.
If you're not going to give me 4, give me the other 2. Right. Or really just 2.
I mean, or just port 2 and 3 over at least,
yes.
So we can play them all on one console.
Yes.
But I mean, because what they did with Metroid Prime Remastered is just glorious. I mean, really, it's closer to a remake than a remaster with all of the new, actual, like, new 3D models that were crafted.
Yeah, and it's so humble. It's so humble. Yeah. It's like, $40.
It is.
They call it a remaster, not a remake, even though it's clearly, like, this is a remake level quality.
It's so much closer to a remake. I think they just didn't call it a proper remake because they didn't redo any, animations or anything like that. But they practically redid everything else.
It's actually my favorite remake. It's the only, I'm famously anti-remake a lot of the times because I think they mess things up everywhere. They don't get the colors right. They don't get anything right. Not so with Metroid Prime Remastered. I think it was perfect. 1 or 2
it's
details.
The best looking game on the Switch.
Best looking game, absolutely.
Oh, for sure, by a mile. It's
I like how we're talking about Metroid.
I do understand where you're coming from with the whole remake stuff. I'm honestly I was a little bit insulted to see Resident Evil 4 remake being nominated for the Game Awards. I was like, they should really have a different category because you already made this game. You just repackaged it, changed some of the stuff you did wrong back then, or that you thought you did wrong back then, and you just changed it. And it just doesn't feel fair to have that game take up the slot instead of like Final Fantasy or something else that
or
came
Starfield.
Out this year that I'm
God, I hate Starfield so much.
Not Starfield. No.
Did you guys see? Didn't Cyberpunk's DLC get a slot somewhere on like storytelling or something?
I'm not
I don't
sure.
know.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember seeing that blinding yellow, but let me check.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Cyberpunk got nominated for narrative award. Let me check. And if it is,
I
like
mean,
that,
good on them.
that's just not right. Like Okay, so it did a good job of redeeming itself. Whatever. That's not the point. Like, it's a DLC. A DLC should have its own category. Shouldn't
Yeah.
definitely should not.
Well, I mean, I see that, but also not all DLC are created equal. So it's maybe there should be multiple other DLC categories. Best DLC, I don't know, for innovation, best DLC for storytelling, best DLC for different things.
They just have to rethink the structure of the Game Awards, because as it stands right now, it's a little bit weird.
Well, it's still very new.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't last year? It's the decade of the Game Awards.
I think it's
Or was
less
it the year
than.
before?
I think it's a less than a
Yeah.
decade, isn't it?
It started in like with Spike TV, I think, but it wasn't called the Game Awards back then. So
I
it
see.
kind
Well,
of
I'm just talking about the Jeff Keighley,
yeah.
whatever he created as a standalone. But
Okay,
because
give me-
it's still it
Give me a
kinda
second,
changes
fellas.
every
I need to go get a glass of water because I've got a cough. Don't stop the
Oh, you're
recording. Just leave it running. I'll be right back.
No worries. All right, now's our chance to talk about him. I'm just kidding.
So how have you been? I see
Oh,
you just uploaded a video.
Yeah, it's a Metroid video, and the algorithm will do what the algorithm will do, or it won't.
Yeah.
But I think that I've decided that I'm going to cover all of the bosses of the Metroid franchise, regardless of what kind of viewership it may or may not have. Because I just, I'm kind of tired of people not covering Metroid, to be honest with you. It is such an amazing franchise.
I am back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, I just wanted a glass of water. Okay, we should
But
probably
yeah, it's
we should probably talk about Zelda, since that's what we came here to talk about. We've been
Zelda. Oh yeah.
meandering around it.
Yeah.
I mean, about the movie though.
Yeah.
So, I am definitely trying to be positive, just for the sake of trying to be positive, because I understand exactly why people want it to be good, but I also have this just overwhelming fear about the live action and about just not trusting it, But I don't know. It's just it's one of those things to where it's like I'm just going to hold my tongue.
Until you see something. Until you see something.
Yes,
Yeah.
until I see something. Right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like that. I'm like that, but it's more like I'm going to hold my tongue just so that I can pounce on it the moment that I see something I don't like, and I can I'm filled with negativity when it comes to this movie. I don't have to say anything. It's just live action Zelda. That should put chills down your spine without me having to put any other context on it. Here, let me show you. Live action Zelda. Do you feel that? Do you feel that in your gut?
Oh,
Well,
it feels
have,
terrible.
have any of you two seen Zeltic's latest video about the movie?
I
The
skimmed it.
latest one, or the first one that he did about the movie?
He made two of them.
Okay,
not the
right.
first one.
I didn't see the
So
latest
the
one.
second one.
So the second one, I have not seen the second one.
Okay, so basically, me and Zeltic had been talking about this subject for like a few days before he uploaded. I was actually planning to make a very, very similar video, but I ended up saying, like, you know what, you got this. All I
Old
can
Ed
really
beat you
add
to
to it is my own opinion, and it's okay. Just upload your video. You're faster than me anyway. So, but we had been talking about the whole prospect of the movie. And one of the things, I still have my script for it, like, fully written out. Like, one of the things that I think might be a little misleading is the word live action that they're using. Because if you look into Wes Ball's latest, like, his history after the Maze Runner, like, he is way into the idea of live action animation. So it's technically live action because you are working with real actors doing their thing in their little motion capture suits, but everything else is basically just digital. Nothing about it is traditional live action, so to speak. And he actually has a few actually has a few demos, like, I think they call it like a visualization, which they often do just to they have the money for that to just be like, let's try something out. And he has 2 of them, and you can kind of see one of them is called After Humans or something like that, and there's another one. I'll link it to you guys after because I don't know from the like off the top of my head, but.
So you guys are thinking that it's not going to be a real live action thing. It's going to be this motion captured live action that he's known for.
Yeah, well, he's not known for it because he only made 3 movies, and those are live action. They do incorporate a lot of effects. Like in the Maze Runner, for example, most of what you see of the maze itself is fake. It's all CGI. But he has expressed on multiple occasions and through his pre-visualization stuff that he posted on his own YouTube channel. You can go to his own YouTube channel to see. He has expressed like his enthusiasm about that specific technology to have a live action / animation movie where it's just the whole environment is digital and only the performances, the emotions are from the actors. So when people heard about the whole live action stuff, naturally everyone started talking about who should play Link, who should
Tom
play Ganondorf.
Holland, Chris Pratt.
Yeah, of course. Tom Holland has to get a mention there somewhere. And I fell into that same trap as well. I was immediately like, oh, Ganondorf has to be a big guy. I don't want to have some 5'8" guy pretending to be an evil like Ganondorf type of figure.
You don't want what's his face from Napoleon Dynamite playing Ganondorf?
At least unless they use CGI for that. Like Thanos was, like the actor himself is tinier than I am, like in terms of height at least. So it is doable if you do it right. But I think the movie is not going to be at all what we think it is. I think it's going to be way more focused towards 3D animation by incorporating motion capture. And the new Planet of the Apes movie is basically the same thing.
So what is his involvement with Planet of the Apes? Is he directing it?
He's directing the 4th movie.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's coming out soon?
2024 it says. So
it
next
came
year.
out of nowhere. Just as far as Planet of the Apes is concerned, since we're just deviating all over the place with this podcast, I freaking love that franchise.
Yeah,
like I love it so much that I hated the 3rd movie because I was like, no, you are not dealing with these characters in the way that I, the fan, think you should have dealt with them. Because that's just the way that fans are. But anyway, I don't know. That trailer has me hyped as hell. I did not know that he was directing that, so that'll be interesting.
Which is not the same director as the first 3, so we'll have to see if he's able to pick up the torch. But
all right, so we can use that movie when it comes out as an indicator as to what we might expect quality-wise.
And it does not have a release date yet, I don't think. Just blanket 2024.
I just said,
okay.
The only small glimmer of hope that I have is that Miyamoto, Nintendo in general, are protective of their properties. They can't want to have a bad movie. Like they cannot want that. They don't want that.
On that note, I think that's exactly it. I think that's why they haven't done that. Like they had a bad taste in their mouth after the Zelda show.
Yeah.
I think. And they because they have done some things that have brought some embarrassment to their company over the years. Cough, cough, PlayStation, cough, cough, Zelda show, original Mario Brothers movie, whatever. And so, I think they just signed off all forms of like television media for years, for decades.
Yeah.
And so, this is a big deal, them trusting, like, for instance, them trusting Illumination to create the Mario movie was a big deal.
And that really was a good movie. Like, I can't believe, like, I was surprised Illumination did as good a job with it as they did. So, like,
For sure.
I constantly felt like Nintendo must have had a lot of, like, supervision when it comes to that. Like, they were probably right there. It's like, no, like slapping Illumination's hand every time they were about to do something stupid.
What have you looked at like the actor interviews and stuff?
No, I haven't.
I think I forget who it was. I think it was Seth Rogen, our beloved Donkey Kong man. Anyway, I think it was Seth Rogen who was saying that it was really fun working with Nintendo, but also like, and I couldn't tell if he was joking or not, but he was like, yeah, they had like the Nintendo bouncers that were there, like, you know, when you go to record, they're just like, so you're not telling anybody about this, right? And like you're not even allowed to like see the other parts in the script. Anyway, they had many different methods of just like locking content down and being like, what I'm trying to say is Nintendo's very hands-on.
Yeah, I think that's also the one glimmer of optimism that's currently in my system, because like Nintendo is absolutely the type of company that would just pull the plug on the whole thing, regardless how far into production it is, if they somehow felt like
It's
the
not
movie
working.
isn't going to live up. Yeah, if it's not going to live up to their standards or something. But like, does that guarantee the movie will be amazing? No, I mean, obviously not.
But it might guarantee that it's not going to be terrible.
Yeah, yeah, because they are very, very protective of
That's
of
a great
their work.
standard. At least it won't be terrible.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah,
We should probably
That-
move on to the actual meat and potatoes of what we're doing here. Bandit, I saw your video that you came out with recently about. So please explain to the audience, why do you hate Zelda now?
All right. You know what? I've just been waiting for somebody to ask me this, but it's about time. I'm just kidding. You know, in the half an hour or so that we were just kind of waiting this morning, I actually went to your channel and I saw I saw my face in your most recent video, sir. So I guess you know exactly what I was saying. But basically, in a nutshell, and I did say it a lot in that video, but my disappointments with Tears of the Kingdom are not shared by everybody. It's shared by fans of the games that are like me, of which you both are very similar. But you know, I'm talking specifically from like a story crafting and lore perspective. Because if it comes to like gameplay and you know, a conversation about like, hey, are you telling me that it wasn't fun to use Ultra Hand to like splice together my mega ship, you know, full of Zonai rockets, you know, that I used to traverse the world of Hyrule? Are you telling me that wasn't fun? No, of course that was fun. But you know, specifically when it comes to even connecting to the previous game, Breath of the Wild, I feel like Tears of the Kingdom not only was disappointing, but kind of fell completely flat. And yeah, that's my potatoes.
What's interesting is
go
that
into-
it's flat enough, like disappointed. I can understand some level of disappointment, but disappointed enough that you're like, you know, I just don't feel like making videos on it anymore. Like that's like a severe case of that same situation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the videos that I was making were about story and lore, and like I was saying in that video, it's just not that interesting anymore. It's I mean, because that's the crux of it all, isn't it? Like the only reason why I was making content on the Zelda series in general was because it's my favorite franchise. And, you know, classically, I have a lot of commenters who would always applaud the fact that I was not solely a Breath of the Wild content creator. Like, as far as the Zelda games were concerned, I mean, I made plenty. In fact, I think I made the majority of my videos on, like, not Breath of the Wild. Just on, like, the Legacy Zelda games, which are my favorite. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what's most interesting to me. And then, you know, obviously, though, once you do arrive in the scene, you do have to do things that you believe will be popular. You know, at least every now and again, you know, to maintain your presence, you know, in the field. So, you know, I would cover Breath of the Wild, and I did like Breath of the Wild for what it is. But all of those concepts were just not present for me in Tears of the Kingdom. And so I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. It just wasn't interesting. Like, we could talk about every character that was brought up. I don't even remember the name of the bird who follows you around and keeps blowing my freaking monster materials off of the Sky Islands when I try to pick them up. Like I don't remember that bird's name.
Tulin.
Yeah. Tulin. Yeah. But it's stuff like that. It's like it was just so like the impact was just gone, just lost. And especially once I started completing dungeons and seeing those copy and paste cutscenes and just everything just started to click in a very bad way to me. It just started to feel uninspired.
So,
I don't know.
So let me before I get to Monster Maze, I think that the kind of criticism that you're going to get from that video is people are going to say that you're just whining, that Tears of the Kingdom didn't validate your theories that you had come up with, or that any of the lore people had come up with.
100%. No, I'm just kidding.
But I don't think that's actually it. It's more like how I feel about Tears of the Kingdom is that the way that it presented things kind of hurt my feelings because it because it made things retroactively meaningless. It made certain things retroactively meaningless. So let me put this out there, and this is how I view it, and you guys can tell me if you think that this is accurate. So Breath of the Wild comes out, and it's placed, distantly from the other ones. It's kind of trying to separate itself from the other ones, but it has a lot of callbacks, lots of references to that old lore everywhere. It's extremely suggestive of stuff for the old lore, and so it invites speculation. It invites that kind of feeling. So it's like it's no surprise that for like years after Breath of the Wild has come out, people are still making Breath of the Wild lore videos, and how it might relate to the past games and how it might relate to the future games. And then when they announced Tears of the Kingdom, they announced that game. Excuse me. They announced Tears of the Kingdom. That gave them more places to connect. Oh, how could this connect to this and this connect to that? But then Tears of the Kingdom arrives, and it solidifies in stone a lot of the things, and it makes it seem like, oh, all those references, all that fertile ground for lore people to play in. Now, we weren't thinking of any of that. We just kind of put that there. We just kind of put that there for no reason. We didn't actually think about it very deeply, and that I think that's well. What do you guys think of that proposition? Before I go any further,
Man, I just that's exactly it. Like you hit the nail on the head. It's like they just put things around the world for no reason. Like they had to actually put a lot of thought to make all of the references in the world that they did. Like they did put a lot of thought into the stuff. Like they crafted another Lon Ranch and just put it there. Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. Why did they do that? Why? Like, no, seriously, why? Because like that it's actually like, if you want to be realistic about it, like, oh, it's impossible, right? That like tens of thousands, plural, of years could pass and the fence is still standing, right? Like, or okay, people recreated it as years went by. Well, even 100 years of decay, like it's still. So realistically, if you want to talk about it that way, it's not likely at all that is the actual Lon Ranch, but
it's just a reference
for lore. Exactly, it's just a reference,
a shallow reference.
That's what it comes down to, a shallow reference. Exactly. So, it really, honestly, I think that's the same concept that can be applied to everything. The Temple of Time, everything. Oh, and don't even get me started about the Temple of Time, dude. I mean, come on. Tears of the Kingdom comes out and there's just another one. It's just there. It's just another Temple of Time. And get this, in the flashback, it's where the Hyrule Temple of Time is. Like, what the hell? And that's supposed to be the Temple of Time from Ocarina of Time, is it not? Apparently not. So I don't even know, man. Like, I don't even know. There's just places that are just simply references, and they don't actually matter. And Tears of the Kingdom proved that they didn't actually matter. And I think that's the taste in your mouth that you're feeling. My feelings are hurt by this, because it's like it just doesn't matter. None of it matters.
Well, to be fair, like when it comes to small references, like with Lon Ranch, the thing you mentioned, I'm okay with that. I'm like, Yeah, they just
Sure,
put
sure.
that there so that people who did play Ocarina of Time will be like, that's Lon on Reg, that's awesome. And you know, the people who didn't play Ocarina of Time, it's just gonna go, you know, they're not even gonna notice that that's relevant in any way because it's just
Right.
a bunch of ruins. I think my biggest problem is that Nintendo tries like either they have to start choosing
They did make a
what they
choice.
want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to start making a hard choice what they want to do with this series. Do you want to just have separate adventures that are largely like disconnected, like Final Fantasy or something? Fine, I'm all for that. I don't care if it's connected or not connected, because usually I prefer to talk about the games on a individual level, just little stories within that game itself. That's what I prefer. Anytime I have to talk about the timeline is not a good time for me because I know I don't actually believe in the timeline. I never have believed in the timeline because it doesn't make any sense. There's so much about the timeline that doesn't make sense. But you know, they did put that out there.
They
for
made it.
people to
Wait,
read.
are you talking?
We didn't make
are you
that
talking
timeline.
Zelda?
They confirmed it. That's their own fault that they.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really understand people who claim that we created the timeline and that we created the Zelda lore and all this stuff.
Untrue.
Our
you
timelines
know-
were better.
Our timelines.
Well,
were,
our timelines were better,
Yeah.
yes, but it still doesn't. You know, it doesn't. Nintendo still made the timeline.
Yeah.
They still put things in their games that fans experienced and thought was cool enough to talk about. Like, how is that not a good thing?
Yeah,
I
'cause,
don't
like,
I don't understand people who
I got to talk about this. I made my video yesterday, and it got a lot of reaction. I got a lot of comments, and these people were venting. Like, people were venting in those comments. It's like I tapped into like a pressure point underground and just a huge steam vent. It's like finally somebody's talking about this, and so like people are the people that are like us, that are lore people, they're like, God, I was so disappointed. I loved Breath of the Wild, but Tears of the Kingdom didn't do it for me, and the lore was a big reason for it. So it's just like constantly. But what I hate Nintendo the most about this situation is that the anti-lore people are now having a field day in that comment section, and they're doing the "I told you so" thing.
Yep.
It's like, I told you that the timeline was stupid. It's like there was no point to the lore, and then Zelda's never been about the lore. And what do they say? They say,
then stop putting it in your games.
yes.
well,
And
it's just factually untrue.
untrue.
And,
Those people are those people are mistaken about the things that they say. But let me phrase it how they phrase it, because I'm sure you guys have heard the same sentence. What they'll say is, Nintendo never intended for the games to connect to each other. That was just something that they did to placate people like you that are lore fans and timeline fans, and that this Legend of Zelda is best looked at, and how Nintendo looks at it is a legend, a retelling of the same legend over and over, and that's actually what the games are like. That's not true. The thing that they're
I've heard that take 100 times every day.
Yes, and the funny thing about that is that that's the fan fiction. That's just how they want to view it. The thing that they're accusing us of doing, that's what they're doing. Because I can prove that Nintendo wanted the Zelda 1 to connect to Zelda 2. I can prove
Thank you.
I can prove that Zelda 2 was supposed to connect to Link to the Past. You know, I can show you interviews, I can show you the pamphlets of them.
The game manuals.
The game manuals.
Just look at the part the part Bandit was talking about in his rant video. Is Ocarina of Time? It flowed perfectly into the Wind Waker. Wind Waker flowed perfectly into Phantom Hourglass. Phantom Hourglass into Spirit Tracks. That whole timeline makes sense. They clearly had a plan for that.
Absolutely.
And to a lesser extent, that also works with the child timeline, where it's like, you know, you have Majora's Mask, and then you get Twilight Princess, which doesn't really connect directly, but it's like 100 years later.
I
the Hero
can
of Time
find
is
you
there.
an interview from
Aonuma.
Aonuma, like 3 months after Twilight Princess release.
Yeah, he said it was between 100 and 200 years after Ocarina of Time.
Yes, and he specifically talked about how the timelines. He described how the timeline split exactly. Like he describes it the way that we understand it today. 3 months after Twilight Princess came out.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so it's not, no, you are mistaken. You are engaging in fan fiction because you want the timeline to be, you want the stories to be best looked at as legends. No, you are doing the thing you're accusing us of doing.
Well, you know why people hate the timeline? Oh, I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's because of the Fallen timeline.
I hate that point.
That's the only reason. Because it's not difficult to understand a timeline split. It's really not. Like, it's
very easy. Flows naturally.
We were hopping back and forth between, a future segment and a past segment in Ocarina of Time all the way until the end, where Zelda used a different device to send Link back in time and break the pathway. It effectively, severed the timeline into. I mean, obviously, you guys know. And so, like, adult and child timelines, that makes sense. Fallen timeline, what the hell? That's an alternate reality. Sense. But the thing is, it's an alternate reality that is just as canon as the other two, and connects. Thanks to Breath of the Wild, somehow connects to the other two seamlessly, and all of them seem to lead to Breath of the Wild. And so, that's why people. And I think that honestly things were pretty neat
before they did that.
Even if you want to say, okay, well, the Fallen timeline is another reality, really more than a timeline, but whatever, at least it's over on it's by itself, it's doing nothing, it's fine, it's another continuity essentially. But once they all had to connect to each other, I think that's when this got worse, and the people that didn't like the timeline the whole time, which used to be in the minority, are now quite loud about their disapproval of the timeline.
You know what I don't like about Tears of the Kingdom that they've made canonical is that Ganondorfs are just born whenever they want.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
Because what we had before was really neat. We didn't have.
Yeah, it was the same guy.
It was the same guy. Like, we didn't have a bunch of Ganondorfs everywhere. We had one Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. And the two Ganondorfs that we got in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were the same guy in two different timelines.
Same dude.
And it made perfect sense. It was wonderful. It even made sense why he had a Triforce in Twilight Princess. You can theorize how.
Yes, they connected.
Yeah.
They connected it very well, I think.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was well done, and it just 2 minutes of talking to someone and explaining it will make them think, oh, that's cool. That they'd get it. Like, they'd stop being so adversarial, and they'd get it if you could just talk to them for a couple of minutes about how those two connect. The only problem was that one Ganondorf that was born in Four Swords Adventures. Yeah, like that. Yeah. And I was just like, we should just ignore that because that's stupid. But now we can.
You know how many people want to ignore that entire game?
Let's just say he they use the word reincarnate, and I think the other one is reappear or revive. They kind of use those interchangeably. Even when he dies in one or he just gets imprisoned, they will still say reincarnate or revive.
But the issue is now we can't ignore him because now Tears of the Kingdom came out, and he's literally just Ganondorf reincarnated for no reason, not the same guy at all, not a retelling of the old ones, because apparently the old ones they insist that the old ones still happen. It is not me that is making these things. That's them saying that all that old stuff still happened. I would be okay if they just cut it off. Like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, completely new continuity. It's starting over. None of that old stuff happened. And we're just going to use Ganondorf and Zelda, and we're just going to use a lot of the symbols. But no, they're not just using the symbols. They're referencing, and they insist that the stuff happened. You have Fi in the Master Sword talking to Zelda. You have the the
same. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the deeper you delve into it, the more it connects actually. But it's just that all of the different topics don't connect is the thing.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I found frustrating. The Ganondorf just apparently just plops in. They took the coolness of it before. Gone.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Monster Maze about this. I think pretty soon after the game had released, and I might be wrong. I was talking to somebody about it, but I was so disappointed in Ganondorf. So disappointed. Because that was one of the biggest draws to the game. This was the first time we saw Ganondorf in 17 years. It's insane how long it's been.
There.
Well, he's just there.
He's just kind of there.
It doesn't matter because okay, Ganondorf came out swinging, man. In Ocarina, like we knew the name Ganondorf in 1991. A Link to the Past came out, and his name was Ganon, right? But if you read the manual, it's like Ganon. Yeah, Ganondorf is the Triforce corrupted version of of Ganondorf Dragmire. And then Ocarina of Time comes out clearly to be like a prequel. And it's like, that guy that, those astute lore fans read about? Well, here he is. And boom, like he came out swinging. He was iconic, recognizable, deep. He met Link when he was a kid, but didn't kill Link because he kind of liked Link because Link was spunky and courageous. Like, that's cool. That's how you write a good villain. And then, later on when they meet, it's like, I should have killed you then, It's like, and then, the kid has grown up and he now defeats the evil king and then seals him away. And then we've got Wind Waker. And oh my God, everything just got better in Wind Waker. Because now it's like Ganondorf, who we already liked, now he's just deeper. It's like, he explains to Link, he's like, you want to know why? I did it for my people. And you're like, oh my God, I love you, but I have to kill you. And then, like Twilight Princess comes out, obviously, and it's a much more angry version, which is also understandable if you take into concept, the timeline. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say, Ganondorf has always been such a big hitter, and he's been fantastic. The writing behind him has been fantastic. And it hinges on the concept that he's the same Ganondorf.
Yeah,
the moment that you take
without actually forcing you to play the previous game, they still managed to make him interesting or at least understandable because that's kind of Nintendo's thing, right? They want to make sure that you can dive into a game without having played like the 20 games before it, or in this case 19.
Dude, and they succeeded in all of those, and without having to resort to this weird, it's connected, but also we're not even connecting to Breath of the Wild like strategy that they did for Tears of the Kingdom.
If you didn't play any other game, you started with Twilight Princess, you just see an evil guy getting stabbed and he's like gets really angry and he somehow survives that mortal wound and he shows up again at the very, very end.
It's
Spoilers.
still iconic. You don't need
spoilers.
to know.
Yeah, you didn't really need to know. Plus, the story was not necessarily about Ganondorf. It was about the Twilight and the people and how they were manipulated.
Yeah, he was kind of a cameo in Twilight Princess. In fact, they hid his appearance quite well, I think.
Yeah. They sure did.
But well, sorry, I just got to say this real quick. In Tears of the Kingdom, when you start the game, and Ganondorf wakes up and recognizes Link and Zelda, I lost my... Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know if you allow words on your channel, but I lost my collective shit. All right? When he was like, the one who wields the sword is Link, and that's Zelda, I was like, oh my God! It's been 17 years! It's happening! And for the first time in a Zelda game, he recognizes them because of the previous iteration.
Because
like, this Ganondorf...
We were still assuming that was the same Ganondorf. Like we were all still under the impression that they weren't going to break that tradition, that it was the same guy.
Well, and for the first time, it was going to be a character in a Zelda game that references other Zelda games, vocally, verbally.
Yeah,
like it was. I had, and then he's just another guy, and he recognized him because of because Rauru kind of whispered in his ear and was like, "Dude, Link's gonna totally mess you up.
He's gonna mess you up. Don't you worry.
Gonna mess you up, man." And that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. That's as deep as it was.
It felt very weak in that regard. Not
Talking
gonna lie.
Talking about how the past Zelda games, like one of the best examples of what I think these games are unusually deep despite their simple stories is what you guys were mentioning in Wind Waker. So at the ending of Wind Waker, when you have Ganondorf there at the end, like that, I think that's actually a beautiful scene, because he's an older, more mature Ganondorf. He's had time to reflect, and he's not going to kill Link in that final battle. Like
he doesn't want to.
He specifically says, "No, I'm not going to kill you. I just want the Triforce," and he's going to use the Triforce to bring Hyrule back from under. So he and the King of Hyrule are stuck in the past. They're metaphors for the past. They want to use the golden power to resurrect the past, bring it to the surface, and bring it back to prominence. They don't represent the future. And so the King of Hyrule, he's like, you know what? We're done with this. Me and Ganondorf are buried beneath the waves. he takes the Triforce, he makes his wish, and he's like, I wish for a future for the children, away from Hyrule, away from the past. And so they both get sunk under the sea. In that great final battle, while the great final battle, what music was wonderful. The water's falling, so it looks like it's raining, but it's actually just the ocean collapsing around you as you're fighting with Ganondorf. It's great, wonderful stuff.
It's so poetic. It's so amazing. And the king, at the very end, there's no reason that he can't go back up with them, but he reveals that he is just like Ganondorf. He is still stuck in Hyrule, and he says, "That land, that'll be your land, not mine." And so he chooses to die down there with Hyrule. It's oh my god, it's so good.
So good. Yeah.
And see, it has to tie back, that Ganondorf has to be the same Ganondorf. He has to be the one who came from Hyrule for that to work.
For that, yes.
And on that note, that Ganondorf's story was over.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think people knew that, the Ganondorf from the child timeline, in Twilight Princess, his story was over too. And, I'm saying the Ganondorf from, but, it's the same character. But, obviously when he was split across the timelines,
he had different development.
He had different development, different iterations.
I never thought of it until you just mentioned it, but that is actually the reason why I don't like this Ganondorf as much. The Tears of the King. You're right. It's because it's not Ganondorf. It's just some guy. He has none of the history.
That's what I'm saying.
Him.
He has no, and he doesn't have the motivation of the Triforce.
Yeah.
And I understand that they want to bring an iconic character back. I kind of get that because Ganondorf. Everybody who knows Zelda knows Ganondorf. He's kind of like, in terms of villains, he's like the poster child.
He's bigger than the Zelda franchise itself.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows Ganondorf.
But that doesn't mean you have to bring him back if you cannot do anything smart with it. You cannot just put Ganondorf in there and just parade him around like, look, guys, he's back after 17 years. Very cool.
For the first time in a long time, it felt like a cash grab.
Yeah, like, does it make sense for him to be there? No, it doesn't. The only way it made sense, at least in Breath of the Wild, it did. It was, despite the fact that he was dead, his malice still persisted, and it took on this shape of it was almost like a natural disaster in a way. That made sense, and it was actually more scary. But now that he was just a guy again, it wasn't as scary anymore because he's just a dude, and he doesn't even really have motivations that scare you in any way. It's just a king must rule.
Yeah. Oh God, no. Oh, I hated that shit.
That is what I must rule. That is what a king must do.
It's
or
awful.
Whatever. And it's like, it's like that. That is just the laziest excuse for making someone evil.
That was the writer's attempt at putting some deep dialogue behind it.
Any dialogue behind. That was literally the only piece of information we got in the game talking about his motivation. That one phrase. And it's sad because the one thing that had me super excited about Tears of the Kingdom more than any other thing was when you saw mummified Ganondorf sealed away and you thought, oh, well, that's the reason that the calamity keeps happening. He's managed to somehow, some version of Ganondorf from some timeline has managed to stay alive all this time, and he's so filled with hatred that this malice is leaking out. And I thought that he willingly put himself in this state.
It could have made sense.
Yeah, it
could have been the child timeline.
Yeah,
or not child, sorry, the fallen timeline.
Yeah,
it could have been. Yeah, it could have been the child timeline too, without going into any super theories or whatever. But I mean, like, the easiest theory there was that it simply was the fallen timeline. Like, criticisms on the fallen timeline aside, that is the same timeline that just has Ganon resurrected over and over.
Yeah.
And in fact,
and it would have made
Twin
sense.
Rova,
it would have made sense if that he recognized Link in the beginning. That he saw them and he recognized who it was. Like, it would have been perfect. It would have been perfect. He had suspended himself, like he tortured himself in this way. To his hatred's living on. He's using Calamity Ganon over and over, and now he's unsealed. It was it's much better than what we got. Damn it.
Yes.
I think that's kind of the problem. Like, I don't consider myself a very smart individual, at least not when it comes to story writing or writing clever stories in general. But if I can come up with better ideas then the whole team of people who are supposed to be the experts here, I just have to wonder, like, did you really want to write a story, or did you just tag it on out of almost laziness just to have something there? Because, like you said, a lot of the stuff we've discussed here right now is already better than what we ended up getting. You know?
Yeah.
And they could have done it in such a smart way too, where you still don't have to play any of the older games, but people who did, they're gonna
We'll get something out of it. They'll get something.
Their minds, their minds are gonna be blown. Just as an example, Ganondorf is inside the depths, right? Like that's where his body was kind of just hanging out all this time. What if the depths used to be the bottom of the ocean, and it just dried out over the thousands and thousands of years? The water just receded, and it just left this hollow space. And you just put an item somewhere, just like they do in Elden Ring. Just put an item somewhere, or like a notebook or whatever. Just a little bit of a lore hint that explains, like they say the depths used to be a vast ocean or something like that. That would be enough. We would have been able to make that connection. No Raru, no like evil or no Zonai hand is keeping him down there, whatever. He was just down there all that time. He was just, his corpse was still leaking malice, and he was just there.
That would have been great. That would have been great.
That would have been enough. You don't have to play the previous game. You can just say, people will understand, oh, there was some ancient evil down there in the depths, and people will get it. They will be able to run with it.
But the people who know will get it. Yeah. I don't understand.
Give me a second again, guys. Sorry. I leave the audio running. I'll be right back.
No problem.
Man, I was going to say, I should probably wait till he's back to say what I was going to say. But, yeah.
You can just repeat it.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. What I was going to say was, like, I don't see why people act like it's impossible to make an open world game, but also like a sequel.
Yeah.
Like, I have you seen those comments? Like the people who are like, what do you got to choose your lane, man. Like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to make another great game, or do you want them to just respect the story? Because I genuinely don't know what you want Nintendo to do. It's like, I that's almost word for word, like several comments that I've gotten. And it just, I don't understand that at all. Because like, you look at games like, I mean, Dark Souls. Like Dark Souls 2 aside, since that's, a bit harder to understand, Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 1, they're extremely connected to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And their storytelling style, I mean, the style of, Soulsborne games, they're, it's very like, you have to dig. But everything that you find in those games connects to each other. There is nothing that's contradictory. Because you can create a game, and I know it's not open world, but I mean, you can create a sequel that is new and conquers like new concepts, but also respects its established lore. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do that, just come up with something completely new. Just let go of the past.
Absolutely.
And just, no more Ganondorf.
100%.
No more. You can have a reference here and there just for the fun of it, but just. Like if Nintendo really wants to let go of that timeline concept, but yeah, I agree with what you say.
Nobody made them use the same characters. Like nobody forced them to bring Ganondorf back, and then just make him a hollow shell. Like just come up with a new character. Why is it that they had to outsource Zelda to the Hyrule Warriors team to get a new villain, Astor?
Yeah.
Why couldn't Nintendo come up with Astor? Or and do something new with a new character? Like, I don't know, man. That was one of the things about Age of Calamity. That was, I mean, it's disappointing that it was, just non-canon. Basically as canon as whatever we're talking about here in this call. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, Age of Calamity's story was actually pretty good. Oh, what's up, man?
Hey. Yeah, like on its own.
Yeah, on its own.
Yeah.
And anyway, but it was able to be that way because in essence, Nintendo just kind of gave the storytelling aspect to another team. and that other team was just like, you know what I think would be cool? You know, XYZ, let's write a new character. Let's, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about, I was telling Monster Maze that nobody made Nintendo use the same characters. They decided to pull Ganondorf back and then make him some hollowed out new version of himself. And he had said that, you know, that's like, just come up with new characters. Write new stories. Do something completely new. And I can get behind that.
Just to interject real quick, do you want to censor that last part where you talk about people in your comments and things like that?
Oh,
like while Ratatoskr
you know
was
what?
away?
You know what? I'll let Mr. Ratatoskr
Okay.
decide.
Well, I haven't
Okay.
listened to it, so
Sorry.
when I listen to it, I'll see if it needs to get censored.
I don't mind, really.
Okay.
You know, like if those people happen to be watching this video, then hey, I read your comment, and you know, there are my thoughts. See you next time.
Well, what did the comments say?
So the comments were saying basically that they don't understand what I am wanting from Nintendo. They don't, and it's something that I don't understand. What they don't understand is the thing. It's like, do you want Nintendo to respect its story, or do you want them to make a better game? Like, I genuinely don't know what you want Nintendo to do. And my point with that is that I don't think it's that difficult to make a sequel that's also open world, whatever you want to say, that also respects its own story. Like, I don't think it's that difficult. And I cited, you know, like Dark Souls and things like that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. I really have grown to dislike these anti-story, anti-lore Zelda people. It's like, okay, they'll come to the comment section and they'll say, imagine playing Zelda game for this story. And I'm like, okay, then go the fuck away. Like, this is just, go away.
Well,
I mean, this is
I just don't understand where people pull this stuff from, because you have 19 previous games to use as a reference and to see that they really it is a story driven IP. You know, this isn't Mario. It's always had a story, and you know, I think maybe there was a time, but before Hyrule Storia, before all that those people had a little bit more to work with. Those the lore denier type of people, where they were like, you know, they really don't. I still have articles saved on my hard drive just for the fun of it that say something along the lines of, stop trying to make a timeline, Nintendo doesn't care, the story doesn't matter, something like that. And then Historia came out, and those people were kind of silenced for a while. And I think because of Breath of the Wild and its sandbox nature, I think Breath of the Wild is the biggest non-story Zelda game ever, where it's like you really do not have to care at all about the story in order to enjoy Breath of the Wild. That wasn't the case with Ocarina of Time. You at least had to know a little bit what you were doing, because, or else you didn't know where to go, or you didn't know why you had to do certain things, or what your motivations were. So you still had to at least
you had to pay attention
engage
to what was being said by the characters, or you wouldn't make any progress.
Yeah, you would still have to engage with the story at least. And with Breath of the Wild came as close as you can to where you don't have to at all.
And even in that one, the only reason they get away with that is because they do a gigantic exposition dump that tells you the whole story at the very beginning in the Great Plateau. As soon as you do the Great Plateau, the king tells you, all right, this is what happened. And he just pretty much tells you the whole story. But he still uses that to ground you as to what you're doing for the rest of the game and why. So you can ignore that. You can go and do whatever you want. You can go fight Calamity Ganon if you want. But he does give you the exposition dump telling you the story. And then he does try and guide you to where to go.
And to Breath of the Wild's credit, what it lacked in actual story and like a narrative, an overall narrative, it made up for the insane amount of environmental storytelling. You had so many buildings that were, every hill had something behind it where you could speculate about, like, whoa, what was this place about? Why is this here? Yeah. How is this connected to other games or whatever? And Tears of the Kingdom didn't have that luxury anymore, or at least it could have had if they weren't so lazy with the level design. Because let's be honest, the depths, the sky, there's nothing there. There's nothing there to speculate about. There's just nothing there to speculate.
I would trade all of the depths for
even the
a
story,
dozen more Sky Islands.
Even the story behind the Sky Islands doesn't make any sense. You don't see them in the past. They're not. You can't see them. Well, maybe Hylia's barrier, whatever. But they say that the Temple of Time was they rose it up from the Great Plateau, like the surrounding land, including the the Zonai Temple of Time, of course, because there's 2 now. they rose that up into the sky, but the Great Plateau looks pretty much exactly the same. There's no huge pieces of land missing. They didn't even try. It feels like they didn't even try to make it consistent at all, unless they were somehow meaning to say like only the Temple of Time was sent up into the sky. But as it stands, it's very, very inconsistent. Same with the depths. It's all the same gray buildings. None of it has any storytelling to it.
Can I just say it's also random as hell?
Yeah, it felt
as far as the story is concerned. I mean, clearly it was the concept, right? At first, it was the, oh my god, you guys, guess what? What if there were floating islands? And everybody's like, dude, that's a great idea. And they were like, but wait, damn it, wait, how's it gonna connect? And they're like, what if we don't connect it? And they were like, brilliant.
No, it's really,
we'll just put it in the air.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's because it's okay. There are floating islands. They want there to be floating islands because there's a land up top, there's land on bottom. That's the concept. Okay. What's the reason that there are floating islands now? They ask themselves. And but there isn't one. Like, there's no explanation why there's floating islands. Where were they before? How were they hidden? They don't. Hylia's barrier. I don't fucking buy that they thought about that barrier. I don't think they remember the barrier at all. I think that we're all on copium about that damn barrier. They don't remember the barrier.
The cloud barrier was, I just want to remind people, the cloud barrier was a legitimate cloud barrier that was used in Skyward Sword, and you could see it. There were clouds everywhere. And it was pierced, obviously just due to the events of that game, to allow people to descend down to the surface, right? But it was a bunch of clouds. In Breath of the Wild, you can look up and see a very, very cloudless sky, and yet there are no sky islands. So what they're talking about now is some sort of magical cloak.
Yes.
Like a cloaking field. But here's the other thing. Why?
It worked, to be honest.
What, cloaking field?
Yeah, because in Skyward Sword, you can also look up and you just see a blue sky, but when you're in the sky itself, you only see... Yeah.
Is it a blue sky?
It was kind of like I always imagined it like a little bit of like a one-way mirror, where like when you're up there, you cannot see the surface.
Well, that would make sense, but I don't remember at all if it was like clear blue skies on the ground. I don't think I looked up when I was on the ground.
Yeah, I can tell you with confidence that you just see nothing. You just see a regular blue sky, a little bit of clouds here and there, but
still,
that was
even
kind of the
even
point
if that's the case, when you're up there, you don't see the cloud barrier. Like when you're in the sky islands.
True. Plus, like you said, I don't think they even remembered the whole cloud barrier.
That's my point.
Thing.
Like that's really my point on all of this stuff. It's like, we can probably sit down here and think of a bunch of reasons why things would work the way that Nintendo says that they work now, with some confidence. It would make pseudo sense. But do you really think Nintendo thought of those things and just aren't telling us? Like, look into your heart deeply, lore enthusiast that's listening to this podcast, and ask yourself, did Nintendo really think of the cloud barrier? Did they think of all of this stuff that you might explain the Sheikah technology or the Hateno village not remembering you? Or the eighth heroine?
Well, exactly, because I just think it's just so convenient, It's like there are so many different ways to just scream, this is plot armor. but this one's called Cloud Barrier. It's like the purpose is completely different. It was, like if the entire point behind the Cloud Barrier in the first place was to like legitimately hide the islands away from like the forces of Ganondorf running around on the ground, then the light dragon like pierced the Cloud Barrier right off the bat. It's like Link is still very weak, and stuff. And so it's like, well, that, why would they not remain hidden until Link knew everything that was going on and like descended down as like a badass or whatever? Like, what my thing is, what was the point?
I think the problem is just that they had every opportunity to do something with it that does make sense, because in Breath of the Wild, they did kind of set it up where those dragons would go up into the sky and you would see a little portal. They would disappear into that portal.
They did.
Yeah.
Which shows that there was something special about it. And we, of course, immediately started speculating, what if there is a world, like all that stuff we saw in Skyward Sword, maybe it's still up there. Like maybe we'll
That's
see
true.
the ruins of
remember
Skyloft, and there's all these islands there now, and maybe other people have since gone into the sky and inhabited these islands, and they built new islands or new structures on there. And how cool would it have been if we would see the ruins of Skyloft up there? And I think they could have done something like that, but they just didn't. They just didn't.
And might I also remind people about all the golden trees? Just as far as Nintendo giving hints that lead nowhere.
What was with the trees?
Like, so golden trees, floating islands, golden land. Golden land is supposed to be the sacred realm.
Sacred realm.
Sacred realm.
Yeah, and it being invisible to the naked eye. I mean, like there is something there. You can kind of feel like, okay, there's something there. Let's figure this out. And now Numa specifically, like in the gameplay reveal for Tears of the Kingdom, while he's sitting there playing, he goes, "As you can see, there are golden trees. You won't find any of those on the surface." And it's like, now why would you say that? You know what I mean? It's like there was something going on there, but again, it's nothing.
I think what really was the last straw for me was the Sheikah technology reveal by Fujibayashi. Like that one, that was the last straw. That was the last nail on the coffin. That completely discouraged me when I heard that. Like it was one thing when I guess the game just didn't say anything. There was no. I scoured around in my playthrough. No NPC ever said anything about the Sheikah technology being gone. I'm like, okay, I wonder what's up with that. Maybe someone will come up with a lore video because I can't find anything. And then Fujibayashi.
Well, so yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, now I was just gonna say, they because I mentioned that in my videos as well, and people were quick to point out that in the Hateno lab, they have like some guardians that are being studied by like Pura and Robbie and stuff like that. And so like I guess the only thing that the game gives us is that they were dismantled for some reason. But that's it.
And
it's not even that much more.
That's an assumption that we made. Like, oh, they repurposed the stuff for the towers, they repurposed the Sheikah technology, and they got some, so they were dismantled. But like that's ridiculous. What do you mean it's dismantled? They dismantled the shrines. Like they dismantled all of the shrines and the divine beasts and all of this stuff. It's like there's way more material to make stuff out of than there is tower, and like the one guardian in the Hateno research area. And
like that's a big one to me. Like why would you break down the towers just to build other towers?
Yeah. And
it's because they didn't.
Yeah, because they didn't.
Just
it disappeared. That's the real reason. Wasn't what we assumed. Oh, maybe they just repurposed it. No. The real reason was like, oh yeah, it just vanished, mysteriously vanished, and the people of Hyrule was like, oh well, I guess that their purpose was fulfilled, and that's why they mysteriously vanished. That's the reason that Fujibayashi gives you. And I'm like, that's worse than the dismantling thing that we were working with before. Like the dismantling already didn't make any sense, but this is just awful. It's like, no, Fujibayashi, now I know you're a liar.
So wait, okay, I don't think I know what you guys are referencing. What?
Basically, Fujibayashi said something along the lines of, because someone asked, like, a lot of people were wondering.
Is this that interview that came out recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, well, a lot of fans who are of the previous game of Breath of the Wild, they noticed that a lot of the Sheikah technology is gone. Like, what happened to it? Why wasn't there any explanation? And he just kind of suggests that it all disappeared.
No, he does not suggest. Here, let me read you the quote. They disappeared after the calamity was defeated / sealed. All the people of Hyrule also witnessed this, but there is no one who knows the mechanism or reasons why they disappeared, and it is considered a mystery. It is believed that since the calamity disappeared, they also disappeared as their role had been fulfilled.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's not even a suggestion like he did with the timeline placement stuff. This was just a straight up confirmation of what it was, which makes no sense. Like, why didn't it disappear 10,000 years ago?
Yes.
It fulfilled its purpose back then, and they actually won that time.
Yeah.
So, in fact, had it disappeared, it wouldn't have been taken over in the next calamity and killed 90% of Hyrule's population.
Yeah.
And, aside from that, just the implications of it, like why would the Sheikah, it's technology. It's not like a magic spell or anything. It's just stuff that they put together. Did they program it to just suddenly disappear when it served its purpose? And why?
And what about the monks in the shrine? It's like,
yeah, I don't even know how to begin talking about that, to be honest with you. That just... I'm sorry, Fujibayashi, but that's kind of asinine.
I don't. The real reason is the real reason is because it's blue. Like that's what I've said in my video when I was talking. It's like, no, the real reason is because it's blue, and it's an ancient civilization with a blue technology aesthetic, and we can't have that around when we have this new.
It's about the green now.
Yeah, we have this shiny new ancient civilization with a green aesthetic. That's the real reason. Like, that's the reason, and this is bullshit that they're spouting at me and expecting me to swallow. No.
But the thing is, people do.
Well,
people do just swallow that.
Well, the biggest problem with that whole, most of the criticism you already mentioned, one is where people say, you're just mad because it didn't align with your predictions and your theories, which is just not true. Do you think I want to guess the entire story before I play the game?
Absolutely not.
I'm just having fun.
Yeah, we would be overjoyed if our theories were just shot down immediately, given that it was addressed.
Well, if it's a smarter answer at the end of the day, I thought I was pretty spot on with my idea behind the 8th heroine, but if Nintendo can come up with something smarter, something I haven't even thought about, I'm not going to be angry. Of course not. I'm going to be super excited about it. I would be like, oh my God, it was right there all along. We were all wrong.
Another thing is all of the stuff that didn't even connect to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that's the real issue. Like, okay. So I talked about your 8 heroines video in my video where I was complaining. And look, the problem isn't, like, people are going to strawman what we're saying. The problem is not that they're not connecting it to past games. Okay, first of all, they are connecting to the past game. They're just doing a shit job at it. They are like drowning us with references that don't actually mean anything, like Fi being able to talk to Zelda and stuff like that. So they are doing that. And then they're like, oh, it's your own fault for thinking that things were really connected. Okay, fine. I don't need things to be really connected. I'd rather they start a new continuity. Now, the problem isn't that they're connecting it to old things. It's that they're not even willing to connect to its own continuity that it established in Breath of the Wild. They make the characters not remember you from Hateno Village because they don't want the players to feel alienated from new players be like, oh, we're missing all this context. All these people know us and we don't know any of them. And they don't want them to feel overwhelmed. That's the real reason that why we didn't talk to them. And some quests are selectively how we did them. And the Sheikah technology, it's like, oh, we have to get rid of it. We just have to get rid of it. It doesn't make sense for the story that we're trying to tell right this second. So we have to completely cut off everything that we said before in one game ago in the same continuity, like 3 years in the past. And the 8 heroine thing too. Every piece of evidence seemed to suggest that you were right about the 8 heroines. About it didn't have sages in the name. In their in their.
That's where it was based on. The whole premise of all these theories was based on that idea that the statue said 7 sages.
7 sages. So every piece of evidence that existed was pointing to, they're paralleling the sages in some way. Maybe they're connected to the secret stone people in some way. Maybe they were whatever. But then the answer that they decided to go with did not connect with the hints that they were putting down in Breath of the Wild. It was just some guy. It was just that's literally the answer. It was just some guy, some Hylian dude, and the Gerudo decided to be ingrates and not let him into Gerudo Town, even though he helped save the town. That's the whole story.
Yeah. It's like, did some intern just put 7 sages on those statues just as a gag, and they didn't realize it? Like, it's so weird when you. Also, I think they even retconned one of the abilities that the 7 heroines are said to have had. Pretty sure they retconned one of them. It used to be like motion, flight, skill, and they added one, or they changed one, I think. But don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they did. Which was already a red flag.
Yeah, there are several red flags for the continuity between just those 2 games. So I think that on all aspects, Tears of the Kingdom just kind of fell short.
I can understand when people I can understand when people go too far with it, where it just gets like, why does that one character I met during Breath of the Wild not recognize me anymore? And you're like, well, I mean, you spent like a total of, I don't know, 2 minutes with that character solving some shrine puzzle. Of course, like, it's supposed to be years later. Not everyone is gonna remember that, So you can go too far with it, where people just
you can go too far, but I feel like, for instance, Hetsu. Like, I feel like he should know Link.
At least Hetsu.
The Koroks. Well, I mean, at least Hetsu. I mean, come on. Like, that he's kind of a main character in Breath of the Wild, and you visit him many times. There's no reason that, like, because here's the thing, like, the passage of time between the 2 games is theorized to be between like 4 and 6 years, right? Which,
something, I mean,
like that, yeah, something like that. And it would literally be as if you no longer remembered what happened when the Switch released, or after that. You know what I mean? Like, how ridiculous a concept is that?
What bothers me the most is still the Hateno Village people. Like, that's just you're gonna put all this stuff, and Link supposedly lives in the house there with Zelda, and they're living together in that house, but every single villager doesn't know you. 100% of the population of Hateno Village, except for the Sheikah guy that works with Purah, which makes sense that he would know you, doesn't recognize Link. Hello, stranger. Welcome to our town. The mayor doesn't know you. The lady that's cleaning the house doesn't know you. The children that are rambunctious and come to the house after school and are known for messing with Zelda's home. And so she built the well outside to get away from them so she could work quietly. None of them know you. They've been in that house more than you have, apparently. And you live there. It's just like, no. The answer is that they didn't think of it and they don't care. That's the point.
Well, and how about the copy and paste quests, like that dude who tries to give a cricket or something to the hotel girl in Breath of the Wild, who literally has you do like the same thing
for a different girl. Yeah,
for a different girl. It's just like, how is that not? Like, I can't be alone. Like, as a Breath of the Wild fan, that just feels tedious. I'm not interested in doing the same thing for the same person just for a different, girl. Like, in my video, I had mentioned that I think the best way to experience Tears of the Kingdom is if you hadn't played Breath of the Wild, and that's one of the reasons why. Like, yes. Because a lot of it just feels copy and paste.
That part of the video really resonated with me. It's like, yeah, that does make sense. Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, and I have a buddy who did that. He actually did not like Breath of the Wild. He tried it, and he said it wasn't for him. And so I was surprised when he like texted me a few weeks after Tears of the Kingdom and was like, best game, like one of the best games ever. I was like, oh, you played it? Okay. But he did exactly that, which inspired that comment from me. He played Tears of the Kingdom largely without having played Breath of the Wild, so every nook and cranny in Tears of the Kingdom, even down on Hyrule's surface, was new to him.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
that's,
like, imagine if you, yeah, like, imagine if you experienced that for the first time in Tears of the Kingdom. Because, like, for Breath of the Wild fans who are playing Tears of the Kingdom, none of the exploration of Hyrule is new. None of
no.
it. There are some new ruins around that fell down from, the sky.
The weird
But
thing is that the Hyrule part is still the most interesting part, even though it's the most explored. Like, the Sky Islands aren't going to do that much for you. And the depths aren't
No,
going to
because
do
there's
that
like
much
3
to
of
you. Like, they're not going to do very much for you. It's still, explore Hyrule is the meat of that game. So it's weird because even that, there's not much there for people that have played Breath of the Wild.
I completely agree. And to your note about the Sky Islands and the depths not doing much for you, I think that is that's such a big point. There should have been where Tears of the Kingdom feels the best and like a sequel is in the sky. Everything looks new. There are some new enemies. You experience your new powers, and there is no secret sauce, right? There's no secret formula for traversing the Sky Islands. You see a Sky Island, 400 feet above your head.
Those
You're
first
like,
3
I
hours,
wonder how
magical. First 3
Yeah,
hours,
yeah, exactly,
magic,
exactly.
absolute glorious magic in Tears
That
of the
is what
Kingdom.
feels like Tears of the Kingdom, right? That's what feels like a sequel. It feels great. But I distinctly remember like looking at the map once I got it for the central zone, and I was like, that's kind of sparse, but that's okay. Like there's this, big ass island in the middle, the Great Sky Island. That's cool. I wonder how many more are going to be out there like this. And every time that you go to a tower, and you get the map for the sky, I remember I was like, okay, where are the islands? And I'm like, oh, those specks. Oh, those are the islands. Oh, okay. Well, this is probably just like this is probably just sparse because it's this area. There are probably more densely populated sky islands, across the map. But no. There are, and to make matters worse,
They even
the vast
copy-pasted
majority.
some.
That's what I was gonna say. The vast
sorry.
majority of the sky islands are copy paste.
Yes.
Like it's
You'll
that
find
same
the
quadrant
same-
looking thing.
These words
Yeah, you'll
hurt
find
me.
the exact
These
same
words just
island.
hurt me just to hear, but it's the truth.
It's true. It's true. And I want that's the thing. I'm passionate about it because I want it to be better. I wanted more. Like I would trade all of Hyrule Surface and all of the depths for that much exploration up in the sky.
In the sky.
Give me a single
Absolutely.
year. I guarantee you, like same as what you said, Monster Maze. I'm not smart when it comes to development because I haven't done that. But I guarantee you give me a year, and even if they're crappy, I'll still come up with 100 more island ideas than what we got in Tears of the Kingdom.
Absolutely. I don't doubt that.
It's just ridiculous.
I was so excited for the sky too because it really spoke to me on a personal level. There's something about the sky and being up there, and I don't know. I was constantly
beautiful.
imagining all the stuff like how high up can we go? Will we eventually reach a point where the gravity is?
yeah, I thought that too.
We're going to the moon.
Yeah, maybe the sky gradually gets more dark as you go up because you're getting closer to the edge of the stratosphere.
Dude, I was excited.
Whatever sphere
when-
is up there first.
You remember the moon jumping in the trailer? Like, like Link like jumping with
Yeah,
like
that's just
zero
random.
gravity type stuff. Well, yeah, it's random, exactly. But that's the thing. Like all of us were looking at that and thinking, "Whoa, that's cool. We're going to be going so high up. Gravity's going to start to like, affect us less and less." Like exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I really thought that was what they were going for. And maybe the surface was just going to be solid ground, like to have some sort of footing. But
Have you
Yeah,
guys
to-
noticed that other, like apart from your channels, other lore people also have kind of slowed down and dwindled, crawled?
Oh,
to-
absolutely.
well, not necessarily slowed down. There's plenty of creators who are still cranking out videos weekly, sometimes multiple times per week. But whenever people say like, "What are you talking about? The story is great," I'm like, well, just look at how the lore community has collapsed on YouTube in the last few months. Clearly something's going on with that, because my views have gone, like, they have taken a nosedive like no tomorrow. Like, even though the quality of my videos hasn't necessarily gone down, I still do the same editing tricks. I still put the same amount of effort into my videos. But like, if you compare the first video I put out after release and the last video, it's just going downhill, man. It's all going down. Everyone's numbers are practically going down.
What I noticed that I thought was interesting was I made like a couple of gameplay related videos after Tears of the Kingdom, and those were my best performing videos. Like I think in my Zelda history when I was making Zelda stuff. So like just how to kill the Lionels was one of them. It had 500,000 views, and some spoiler free tips like that had like 300,000, and like the gameplay aspect of Tears of the Kingdom seems to be, thrived for a lot longer. Like it thrived.
Yes.
Like that was.
It is a very fun game.
Yeah, it's a
objectively speaking.
But to be honest, even in that part of YouTube, I do see slightly less. Like the numbers are dwindling in that one too.
Well, less than Breath of the Wild.
It should dwindle. Like
sure.
Things peak and then they dwindle. But what I'm talking about is
but I mean, like from the very beginning, like even channels like, for example, he used to get like 3 million views per one of his challenge videos, for example, but he doesn't seem to actually cut that part out. I don't want to talk shit about.
Okay. Okay.
Tom, by the way, I consider him a friend, but I don't want to talk about someone else, like specific numbers of someone else, talking on YouTube.
Well, yeah, I think that there's just a general decline in interest that's very stark in comparison. Because like if you just go back 3 years ago, and look at Breath of the Wild related content, it was still pretty regular from a lot of people. I would say that maybe more regular than what we're getting now. Only a few months after Tears of the Kingdom.
I think Breath of the Wild gave birth to so many channels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like Nintendo
Mine,
Black Crisis, yours, Hyrule Gamers. Well, mine technically didn't start taking off until the sequel was announced, but before that. Like, Nintendo Black Crisis didn't exist before Tears of the Kingdom, or before Breath of the Wild.
Right.
Well,
and
even
now
the
he's one of the
sequel,
biggest.
we have Breath of the Wild to thank for, because it's the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
I blame Nintendo Black Crisis for willing the Zonai into existence. This is all.
Yeah, that frickin' guy. Don't you dare edit this out. That frickin' guy, all right? Mr.
Well,
William.
yeah, the Zonai turned out to be in the game, all right.
Oh yeah,
monkey paw curls
everywhere you look. No, that was another thing. Was just the handling of the Zonai. I do honestly believe that Nintendo watched our videos, Nintendo Black Crisis's videos, and they were like, "Yo, they like the Zonai." Like, no, exactly. But the same like effort that they used for writing story, they used for like conceptualizing the Zonai, and they were like, just make everything Zonai.
Do you know what's weird about the Zonai? They're stupid. Like, it's a stupid idea.
Sorry, I had a literal spit take just
I
right
thought you
there.
were going to say something really like poetic or something like, you
And
know
then
what?
just
They're
they're-
stupid.
No, they're stupid. No, they are. It's like, what do you mean, ancient? Why did some furry thing could descend from the heavens and start a kingdom, and it's just like 2 of them?
Oh my god, it was so unexplained.
Weird.
We still
like, it's
have
weird.
no idea.
It has nothing
We
to
still
do
have
with
no idea.
anything. It's
And
like, just why?
were they? Yeah, and why were they able to delegate new sages, when that's always been a Hylia thing?
Yeah.
And why were they able to create new all-powerful artifacts? Why? How? And who are they? Are
And
they
that
aliens?
also kind
And
of
why
ties
are
back
secret
to-
stones secret? Like, secret from what? You tell me about them every time there's a cutscene.
And yet they're not secret, because like they just wear them on their bodies, like flashing them around like, yo, check out my drip, check out my stone, look at what I can do with it. I mean, it's
Actually-
so blatantly out front that Ganondorf spots it from like 10 miles away. He's like, yo, is that a secret stone?
Oh yeah, that's that impossible thing he could see from that far away.
My man got eagle eyes.
It's also because the timeline is a bit weird in that regard, because they don't really make it clear if he already had pre-established contact with Rauru before that. He's just standing there on a hill and being like, the secret stone of the Zonai. How interesting. Such a video gamey villain sentence.
He's a very video gamey villain, you're right.
That is something I would have written.
That's something I would have written, and that's why I don't like it, damn it. Because I would have written it.
It's just, I don't know.
I don't want to read any story I would write.
Yeah, you're supposed to be better than me at this.
But I think that's one of the few parts of your rant video I didn't really agree with. It was the part where you talked about, like, where's the Triforce and why does the Master Sword break? That kind of stuff. I felt like, well, it's okay that they change the rules or they evolve or they omit certain things. Like, okay, the Triforce is just an unknown now, and it's not really gonna, like the Minish Cap back when the Minish Cap came out. The Triforce wasn't in that game either, and
that's true. But neither was the Master Sword. You know, new rules begat new situations.
Suddenly there was a new sword, and suddenly there was this mystical golden power, which wasn't the Triforce.
The golden light.
Yeah, the golden light. Yeah, not the golden power.
I agree with you. You know, I think that new situations are great. Like, I love that. But, you know, Tears of the Kingdom specifically went out of the way, more so than Breath of the Wild, to, like, bring back, you know, Ganondorf. And
that's the issue. That really is the problem. It's not that they're bringing in new situations. I welcome their new situations. I welcome their new lore and the fact that they want to supersede the old lore. Fine. But why even have the old lore around if you're just going to shit on it? Like, if you're just going to... Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I wanted to say is, it's not so much that they have new rules or that certain things are no longer there, like the Triforce, for example. We can only speculate why it's gone or where it's gone. So that's totally fine. I think the problem is that which replaces it isn't satisfactory. It's not a satisfying... The Secret Stones will never be a satisfying replacement for the Triforce.
We'll never see them again.
Make any sense.
We'll never see them again. Like, after this game, they're going to be gone.
They're never going to show up again, and they don't flesh them out at all. They're just there. Suddenly, there's these stones that enhance your power, and you know, at least with the Triforce, they explain what it is, what the rules are, why everyone wants it, why you cannot just go out.
The Triforce is understandable. It's a wishing machine. Like, it is the all power, and it makes sense why people would fight over that. Why so many people would fight over that an entire franchise was born from it, right? But
well, they even explain how it was made.
Exactly. So like the secret stones just coming out of nowhere, busting stuff up, and like, okay, in the next game, what's it going to be? The mystical
with
meat?
One secret stone so much stronger than Rauru and everybody else, and Zelda. You know, like, why? Like,
exactly. Why did he have a transformation, like a Super Saiyan mode, and nobody else had that?
And we can speculate, but again, when you make that speculation, when you try and invoke demise at me, I'm talking about the commenters right now. When you try and invoke demise at me, or you try and invoke some kind of, like, maybe he still has a Triforce piece or something like that, you really think about it and ask yourself, did Nintendo think of that, or are you making excuses?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that my strongest disdain with the entire Master Sword situation was exactly that it was not satisfying. Like, because when I saw the Master Sword shatter at first, I was not upset. Nobody was.
No.
I was curious. I was intrigued.
That was cool.
I was blown away. I was like, whoa. I talked to HMK about it. We had an in-depth conversation about, like, dude, imagine, like, what could have been the power behind that? You know what I mean? Like, what ancient evil are we about to, witness? So because I don't mind new situations coming up. I want there to be new situations. But you hit the nail on the head. It was not satisfying. It was a new little piece of rock that no one's ever heard about, and no one will ever hear about
again.
Again, like, it just popped up, shattered the Master Sword. We had to use one to infuse the Master Sword. And then it's gone, and that's it.
Yeah, and
it doesn't
there have been many thingamajigs across the series that just kind of show up and then they're gone, like the spiritual stones. But at least they didn't play like a huge plot role.
No, the spiritual stones unlocked a door.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
Like they didn't build the Master Sword
And
or anything
the
like that.
spiritual stones do show up a lot, like in iconography. Like their shape shows
You're
up
obviously.
as symbols of those civilizations. Their shape shows up all the time, everywhere.
Yeah, to this day, we have not departed from the spiritual stones. The Zora still have, the sapphire emblem everywhere.
Yeah, and the Gorons have the ruby.
Right.
Yeah.
So to this day, we haven't departed from that, which is cool. I like that.
Yeah, but you also have the 4 elements in Minish Cap and the sacred whatevers in the other games. There's always something to collect.
You're right.
But
Or the medallions, even in Ocarina. Like I get it.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't, but this goes beyond that, because here it actually enhances people in a way where you're gonna be left with questions. Like, where did these stones come from and why are they so powerful?
Well, it would quite literally be the same as if they went somewhere and uncovered the Triforce, like in a cave, and everybody's automatically like, ooh. And then, like, somebody went and touched it and, like, had a evil grimace. And then, like, it just shattered before everybody. And they turned around. They're like, I desire a world without the Triforce. It's like, and that was the trailer. And, like, everybody's like, whoa! Like, the new villain, like, destroyed the Triforce. Like, what's it gonna be? And then the explanation was he found a pebble. And the pebble was magical. And the magical pebble shattered. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just so, like, oh, I see. Okay.
No,
well,
just
moving
there.
on then.
The secret stones are just there, and we're never going to find out who made them, why they're so powerful. All those questions we just asked.
It's not even just about that. It's like we might not ever see the Zonai anymore, even though there's like no information on them still. Like
also, low key. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sorry
Go
I
ahead.
cut you off. But also low key, I'm just thinking about that. That would be a badass Zelda game. Like someone found the Triforce and wished to destroy the Triforce, and like they're ruling the world, because
wait a minute, didn't that happen
that
already in A Link Between Worlds?
In Lorule. Yeah, in Lorule, it's true. But of course, that was kind of it was kind of, because it was still centered around our Triforce, like they were like, oh shit, we still need a Triforce. So then they came to our world, and it was still centered around the Triforce. But like, I feel like if somebody like just popped up and their entire shtick was that they believed the gods should be departed from the world, like not even in like a I want their power way, like just a I want this gone kind of way. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry.
No, I get what you mean.
I'm just fangasming.
What do you think the future holds for 3D Zelda games?
That's a good question.
Like,
because I think
where are we going
like,
from
are
here?
they going to do this? Yeah, like, are they going to do this formula for every Zelda game? It's a very good question.
Yeah,
'Cause there's no DLC.
I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried about that, to be honest.
I mean, I
the
think
next-
that another Zelda game is inevitable.
Yeah, plus I don't think they're going to do this again. Because we do have to remember, even though, like, despite all the disappointments in Tears of the Kingdom, at least from our side, from a lore perspective, and also, to be honest, we have been talking about lore a lot, but I have big issues with the gameplay and the level design as well.
Really?
It's not just the lore. Well, like some of the stuff we already touched upon, like the depths were boring, the sky was boring. Like a lot of
Hyrule was
obviously-
boring.
obviously they
Yep.
did a lot of cool stuff with the mechanics, but mechanics cannot carry an entire game. There has to be more than that, and in that sense, I do feel like they failed. It was still the same, a lot of the same enemies. But that's kind of what I wanted to get into, is that we had never seen or gotten a Zelda game like this before, where it's and the same characters and the same world. It's always been either or,
Mhm.
It's either like in Link Between Worlds, it's the same Hyrule technically, but it's a completely different Link because it's years and years later or decades. And Majora's Mask, same character, but a completely different world.
Right.
So
You're right.
this was the first time where they tried this, And I don't think we're going to see this again. I think from now on, I hope at least, they realize that there wasn't enough to work with. And I think from the get-go, Tears of the Kingdom should have been in a completely new kingdom.
Location.
Or in a new... Yeah, it's in the name, Tears of the Kingdom. Which kingdom? Well, a different kingdom in the sky. Or that they could have gone with that, but no, they felt like they had the idea that they had more to tell about this version of Hyrule and these characters, and it didn't. It ended up not working very well. At least that's how I feel about it.
I am worried that the incredible amount of money they've made on this game is going to give them a wrong impression, because there was an interview where they were talking about the no more DLC, and they also said, like, you know, we went to this world because we thought there was more to do here, and if we thought there was more to do here now, we might go back to that same Hyrule, something like that, paraphrasing. And I'm like, okay. I don't need you thinking that. I don't need you thinking that there's more to do in that Hyrule. I don't ever want to see those canyons, those trees.
Yeah.
I don't want to see those mountains.
It is quite tired at this point. I don't think they will, honestly. I think that their plans for no DLC kind of proves that. Because, you know, that's what Tears of the Kingdom was. And I know I instantly, like, ignited a million people's, like, anger against me by calling Tears of the Kingdom DLC, but it was. And listen, this is coming from one of the people, okay, that defended the fact that it's a sequel, not DLC. But
Same here.
The thing is,
so did I.
Here's the thing, right? It was born from the idea of having too much DLC. That's just a fact. Like, that's proven in interviews. There were too many ideas, so they decided, you know what? We're going to make a sequel instead. And you know what? Like, I can get behind that, right? But it still doesn't, like, it doesn't, especially now that the game has been released, it's quite obvious that it was glorified DLC for Breath of the Wild.
We're come full circle.
It was,
We've
man.
come full
It was. No, like, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. Like, I was.
I've said it. I think even on your podcast, we've said, like, I think.
Oh my God, you're right.
Like a week before release or something, we were talking with Will, and we were also like, oh, well, if this is DLC, like
I remember seeing you guys
like,
say
give
that.
me some of that in other games. Like, I think on Twitter I said the same thing. Like, right after the last trailer, I was like, it's just DLC, bro. It ended up being, the DLC people ended up kind of being right in a lot of respects.
In a lot of ways. Which kind of hurts to say, but I mean, like, again,
no,
I'm not
I hate
too
being wrong.
prideful
No, I don't
to
want
admit. I know, right?
There's just too much repeated content at the end of the day, and the stuff that was added, while big in terms of space, not very big in terms of what it added to the gameplay.
Dude, I'm still so upset about the DLC and amiibo items down in the depths.
Yeah,
I'm so upset. There's nothing to me. The depths are empty, absolutely empty. Like there's no reason for me to explore and find even though I have, but there's no real reason for me to explore and find every chest, because it's either just going to have 100 charges in it, or it's going to have, like, the big Goron sword, big whoop.
I've always thought that
chances are
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I've always thought that they had problems with their reward system, with how they, because you know,
you're right.
they have these big empty open worlds, and all open worlds have to figure out, how do we deal with having an open world? We need to put things in places for people to explore, and they have Korok seeds, and they have these armor rewards, and the armor rewards are supposed to be like the highest quality reward for people. It's a non-destructible item, you know, it's not like a weapon piece.
It's a permanent item.
It's a permanent item. It's a permanent upgrade. You can upgrade it to get extra effects. And they reused DLC amiibo armor from the first game that has no lore relevance to why it's there. Why is the Phantom Ganon set in the fucking mazes?
There's no reason. And I think that Monster Maze and or maybe it was a standalone video for you, I forget, it was several years ago at this point, but I think you actually had a video where you were talking about the canonicity of the DLC items.
Yeah, that was our collaboration video.
Yeah, it was a collaboration. Right. That's why I remember it so well. But, and then, of course, Tears of the Kingdom comes out. And, yeah.
Just shattered that whole idea. Because I was like, well, they could technically be replicas of things, or some of them might be the original. So we could.
And then the great Misco, the great Bandit Misco could have, put it around here and there.
Yeah.
But then it's like, and I guess you could still use the same explanation if you wanted to for Tears of the Kingdom. Because, especially since there are maps, right? But now, like, who is this freaking Misco guy, man? Like, he's up in the sky, like, writing maps down. He's down in the depths. Like, why isn't he the hero? Like, he's clearly, like, able to get wherever the hell he wants to be.
Yeah, because the maps are always found in the sky area, right? As far as I'm aware.
Yes, they are.
Apparently, Misco has now become this kind of, like, fashion guy who had all these different clothing and attires and whatever the hell. They
were so exactly, and all of those things, like even the Great Bandit Misco, right, from Breath of the Wild, was kind of, he was an enigma. It's like there's one quest line about him, more than one quest line, and I think they even had the DLC items, like the hidden chests and stuff, be attributed to the Great Bandit. But like it was an enigma. It was like, who is this guy? How did he get a hold of these things? And then all of a sudden, Tears of the Kingdom comes around, and it's like, oh, he's still around. He's still around, like hiding stuff everywhere. There are several references to him that are quite big, and it felt kind of like a mini Zonai situation there, where they were like, yo, the people liked Misco, so guess what we should do? We should put him everywhere, and like it just doesn't, like, it cheapens. It cheapens how cool it was in Breath of the Wild, and the same for the Zonai. It cheapens, like, the mystery behind them.
Let me ask you guys a question. Like, I feel like the reason that my feelings were hurt, like the reason that a lot of I feel discouraged when it comes to Zelda lore, is because all of a sudden it became clear that they weren't thinking about it very deeply. And do you think that that's the case just with Tears of the Kingdom, or Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, and all the past Zelda games, and the naysayers were right all along, and we were wrong, and we never should have doubted them?
Well, that's not the case.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and say no on that last one.
Okay.
But I do think that it's been the case for at least since Breath of the Wild. I think that Breath of the Wild was in a perfect spot to where there was enough wiggle room for everybody to wonder what was more, like what like to read in between the lines. Because it was a standalone game, and it had all these references, and it had all this stuff that was very vague, but it was a standalone. We could talk for forever about what connected to where and whatever.
But do you think that Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild did have all that stuff that seemed to connect to things, do you think that stuff was put there on purpose, and that there was thought behind that, and they just chose not to go anywhere with it, or were we looking too deeply into it even back then?
I'm going to be honest with you. Oh, sorry, go on.
That's a difficult one. No, that's all I wanted to say. That's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one, but so like I'm a big fan of just wacky, weird stuff. Okay, like I am, okay? And what I mean by that is, like, I'm a big fan of wacky, weird shows, like Twin Peaks, for instance. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Twin Peaks, and David Lynch.
David Lynch. I was about to say David Lynchian.
Yes, sir.
Stuff.
The Lynchy, he's so, like, formidable in the writing and directing sphere that you can refer to something as Lynchian.
Yeah.
Like he's you know what I mean? But anyway, so what he likes to do, and since you guys both seem like you're familiar with him, so as you know, what he likes to do is he likes to just do stuff. Just stuff. Very deliberately, very intricately, but not explained. It's up to you. And, to this day, it's like, does he actually know what he's talking about? Or is he just kind of putting things places? And he likes to sit back and just kind of see what people come up with. Like, what is the truth? And I don't think anybody's been able to figure him out. And I think that this is kind of a similar situation. I don't think that, like, Aonuma is, is writing Twin Peaks necessarily, but we do have one game in the franchise that was directly inspired by that, Link's Awakening. But anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
that
think
was Koizumi. That's why
it's true.
I miss
But
Koizumi.
I think
And I think
Right.
Majora's Mask also kind of skims that
that was
line
also
of-
Koizumi.
Wait, wasn't Anuba the director?
He was,
also?
but Kazumi was the one that was responsible for a lot of the stuff we like about Majora's Mask.
For the story, you mean?
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing.
Gotcha.
It's like when there is depth to something that you can tell is there, you just don't understand what it is yet. That's cool. Like that's a beautiful thing, and that inspires, conversation. It inspires fandoms. I think that they tried to do that with Breath of the Wild, and like I was saying, it was a standalone, so it still worked. But I don't think that they necessarily had the answers in mind when they created these things. No. I think, like, for instance, what is the secret behind the Breach of Demise?
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, that
You
was
see what I mean? Like, what's the secret?
similar case, because Breath of the Wild as a whole is just one giant Easter egg and
Yep.
reference to older games. I think the way I see it when it comes to the lore and how well they are thinking about that lore, I think it would be dishonest to say that Zelda lore has always been like perfect or that well thought out. They definitely went through a couple of resets.
They did.
Which
for
is
sure.
probably also where the third timeline split came from, because they had all these other games that they wrote like years ago, and they were like, "How the heck is this gonna?" Because
Yeah, they
we
wrote them,
talked before.
Yeah, they wrote themselves out of
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah, because we talked about before, Ocarina of Time, starting with Ocarina of Time all the way up until Spirit Tracks makes total sense. Same with Child Timeline up until Twilight Princess, Four Swords Adventures, I agree. It was a multiplayer game and they kind of got wacky with the story. Let's just chalk it up to that. And the same thing goes for a lot of the older stories. You can tell that they did retcon a lot of stuff and they were still figuring out how this mythology, how this world worked. There's a lot of stuff in A Link to the Past, even though Ocarina of Time is supposed to be a prequel to that. There's a lot of stuff there that's incompatible, which is why it ended up being in a completely new timeline that shouldn't exist. That's kind of a testament to that. So, and that's fine. I think it's fine that the writers were still figuring this world out. But at some point, starting with Ocarina of Time, I think they hit a certain stride where it finally started to make sense and started to connect. And then Skyward Sword came along, which made it even more perfect with the whole explaining why this whole cycle of evil keeps going and keeps repeating. And then with Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom, they kind of throw that all by the wayside again. And I just feel like, why would you do that when you finally have something stable going? Why would you suddenly make it so much more complicated? Because you're
The
just
lore
making it
crafting.
you're
Yeah.
just making it harder for not just the other like the fans, but for yourself as well. What are you gonna do
That's
for the
true.
next book?
Nintendo is responsible for this current situation. I mean, that's just a fact. But the lore crafting of the Zelda franchise was at its zenith, I believe, in Skyward Sword. Like, we just, it was...
If anything, Skyward
The
Sword
Zelda games-
proved that they were trying to
Yes,
make it all
exactly.
make
And
sense.
was-
They wanted it all to make sense. They were trying to put it
Yeah.
all into a stable area. Skyward Sword was lore,
Well,
the
you
video
forged
game.
the Master Sword. Yeah, exactly. Like, you
It really
forged
was.
the Master Sword. They came up with this new goddess. Of course, we still don't know how she kind of fits in with the other three. But anyway, this new goddess, that was like responsible for the protection of, the surface and the forging of the sword, and, then like incarnated into Zelda. Like, that's some cool stuff.
Yeah,
like
and-
that's some cool stuff. Like, I loved
that's-
the lore of Skyward Sword.
That's why I just don't understand why they chose to go in this direction now suddenly. Because it was supposed to be like, we're going back to the roots and we're gonna kind of do a soft reboot of the series in terms of, like a spiritual reboot in a way. because they wanted to capture that old magic from the first Zelda.
You know what they did with Breath of the Wild that I think that, because, Nintendo always listens to fan feedback quite a bit.
Yeah.
They always do. Now, they might not respond hitting the mark. That's a different
Sometimes they
entirely.
overcorrect. Sometimes, yeah.
Yes, sometimes they overcorrect, but they will always listen and try to change it up. And what was the biggest complaint after Skyward Sword? Gameplay and linearity.
Yeah, it was too linear.
Too linear. Yeah.
It was so what did Breath of the Wild do?
Total open world freedom.
The total opposite.
Yeah.
The exact shackle breaking opposite. However, but at the same time, they were trying to ramp up the lore. So they had this grand open world, and they came up with the idea of, you know what? Why don't we litter the entire freaking place, every square inch, with lore
And environmental storytelling.
Environmental storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think that's how Breath of the Wild was born. And I mean, it was cool. We wouldn't be talking about any of this if Breath of the Wild hadn't set the precedence of what lore could be.
I think I just figured it out. I just figured out the whole thing. You know why there seems to be this unusual dwindling? It's because Breath of the Wild created a bubble of lore enthusiasts. It was inflation. It was lore inflation. And people were joining into the YouTube community, into the Zelda community. Before that, Zelda was a much smaller franchise, and there were dedicated lore people. But Breath of the Wild just exploded, and there were so much. The biggest channels on Zelda were lore that I could find. And so there's all this lore stuff, and then there was a crash with Tears of the Kingdom. It's the demand for lore is higher than the supply. There's not enough supply of lore to meet the demand.
I feel like I'm about to get a degree in economics. that was a great way to put it. Legit, that was a very good way to put it. I think the expectations were set.
When it comes to the dwindling numbers and the low amount of content in terms of lore for Tears, is mostly just the fact that there's not that much to talk about. There's literally, I would say the baseline of your video, Bandit, is it's not that interesting. There's just not enough to talk about. And in large part, that's due to the fact that it's a reused world with not a lot added to it. And the stuff that's there just doesn't tell nearly as much of a story as the previous game did.
Plus, when was Tears of the Kingdom announced? How long ago was that?
2019.
Okay,
June 11th.
Yeah. Okay. So we had this period of Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild by itself had a great deal of stuff to keep it going. It had all that speculative lore that we were talking about. So it could go strong for a good while. And then Tears of the Kingdom, and then we got the DLC. And then the DLC came out, so there's more content to make.
The book is also that also contributed to
Creating a Champion came out, so there's this just constant rich environment to make content for. And then they got announced with Tears of the Kingdom. And then, oh my God, from that moment until release was just a lore grab bag. You could just, it was a buffet. There was plenty for everyone to make videos. That's true. And then now that it came out, it's it's over. It's over. We're done. We've never been so starved.
Honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the Zelda lore channels, now not all of them like Monster Maze was saying, but a lot of them are kind of just sitting back and wondering what's next, because it's true. I think that era is over. And there's nothing on the horizon that's going to bring that. We can't even make a video speculating about Tears of the Kingdom DLC.
Because there's no DLC.
They shut that down too.
Because there is no DLC, yeah.
So it's over, honestly. It's all about if you want to do Zelda lore, it's all about legacy now.
Mm-hmm. And that's never going to get as many views as...
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is, Also, have you guys seen the Tears of the Kingdom sales?
I heard they were huge, gigantic.
I mean, they were when it released, of course. I think
isn't it plateauing pretty hard now?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. It cleared 10 million sales in 3 days or something absolutely crazy like that. It was. I think for a little bit there, it was the best-selling game of all time. But it's it hit September, or I'm sorry, it hit June, and it was at like 18 million, and then it hit September, and it was at 19. And it's only been slowing down since.
I don't think it's going to outsell Breath of the Wild. Everyone thought back then that it would, because it outsold it in speed. But I don't think it's going to reach Breath of the Wild's numbers. No.
Personally, I don't think so either, because the Breath of the Wild fans are not they're not doing the same thing with this game that they did with Breath of the Wild. Because like Breath of the Wild trickled up as well, because it like after its release, like obviously there was the several million people that are just going to buy everything that has the name Zelda on it. But after that, it was like word of mouth. I mean, like Zelda has never had its own corner of meme culture until Breath of the Wild. Like we had meme videos on just Link doing stupid stuff, and they're hilarious. And like, you know, it's like Breath of the Wild was huge. There was a culture behind it. And so like word of mouth spread, and, you know, Breath of the Wild impacted the entire gaming community, won Game of the Year. Like it was a big deal, you know? But Tears of the Kingdom, I don't see it having the same impact on people. I look around and I see Tears of the Kingdom's biggest fans are people that do not really care about Zelda.
Oh.
They think the game is fun to play. And, you know, so they're going to play that game and it's going to be really cool, but they're not necessarily, you know, thinking, oh, wow, let me get more from this franchise.
I do think
I played Tears of the Kingdom.
I do think it's not going to have the same big cultural impact that Breath of the Wild. I don't think it's going to win Game of the Year. You know, I don't.
Well, I hope it doesn't, personally.
Me too. I'm a Baldur's Gate 3 promoter.
Yeah, my vote is either going to go to Baldur's Gate or Mario Wonder. I'm just kidding.
I think Baldur's Gate just deserves it more because they built this whole thing from the ground up.
Well, and it is a
insanely
great,
detailed.
Yeah, and it's a great on-ramp for fans into Dungeons and Dragons.
Or just CRPGs in general.
Or just CRPGs in general, yeah.
That alone is what impressed me more than anything. Like, nobody plays CRPGs. Like, I mean that. Like, nobody plays turn-based CRPGs games. I get it now. All it needed was to zoom in on their faces. That's all that was lacking. It wasn't that the gameplay wasn't popular. People love Baldur's Gate 3 gameplay. People that don't usually play tactical games or any turn-based games at all are playing that thing and loving it. It's that they just needed to zoom in on their faces and have the characters be hot and have voice acting. That's it. That was the only thing missing.
And then have some of them be able to be romanced and turn into bears.
Yes, yeah. That's what that's what the gamer was wanting. Of course. Why didn't I think of that?
That's it, man. I just, you have the economic speech and I have the bear sense.
It just makes sense that this is the game of the year because it feels like it did what Breath of the Wild did before that. Elden Ring did. The best game, in my opinion. Yeah, of course. Well, Elden Ring is also in that, precarious situation where it far outreached the original, because I'm not. I only stepped into this fandom, the Soulsborne fandom with Elden Ring, and I guess before that it was also similar to before Breath of the Wild. It was a bit more niche, and with Elden Ring, it just stepped into this way bigger, because Elden Ring garnered the same type of memeability where people were just constantly... You saw Elden Ring everywhere for weeks and weeks and weeks upon end. People having funny deaths and people beating bosses without getting hit, and it was everywhere.
Random people randomly picking stuff up and going, "Is this the Elden Ring?"
It's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
It was great.
It was the phenomena of the year.
If you go look at Google Trends and see the trendability of Elden Ring and you compare it to other things, like even like it outstrips Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. It doesn't matter what you put up against it. Like its popularity is just huge, like double. Like if you combined the lines for Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, I don't think it hit Elden Ring's numbers.
Damn.
Yeah, which, to be fair, it's cross-platform, so you're going to have a wider audience by default, but still, Breath of the Wild was... it did make that same step where suddenly there's a huge new influx of fans coming into the fandom. And before that, Zelda was pretty niche, and it gave birth to a whole golden age of making Zelda content, especially lore. And I kind of have to agree, as depressing as it may sound, that era has started to come to an end a little bit. And it might rekindle again once we see what the next Zelda game will be. Maybe the next Zelda game will be exactly what everyone wants. It will be amazing. It will be the next big thing.
All we need, like, if we have a trailer, like, it'll all start up again. I believe it. Like, the engine will start running again. The people are like, oh, content, let's go.
Well, that's the thing about fandoms, right? That's what happened to the Zelda fandom after Skyward Sword. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and plus, despite the disappointments in the lore that we have in Tears of the Kingdom, at the end of the day, it is just one game. It is just one Zelda game that just didn't hit home for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it will survive because, first of all, the series is more popular than ever before, and it's gotten more mainstream attention than ever before. It's going to be fine. It's going to be just fine. You're always going to have those big milestones, and then it's going to drop off a little bit, and then another big milestone. Ocarina of Time was the big phenomena back in the day. All the Zelda games that came after, they all did.
They had 19. We had 19 years of Ocarina of Time likes, so like
exactly.
That's true.
And they didn't sell close to anything Ocarina of Time had.
Well, Twilight Princess.
Or maybe
Twilight
Princess did.
Twilight Princess.
Yeah, Twilight was the most popular Zelda game until Breath of the Wild, I think.
Yes.
Which I don't.
But even
agree
Twilight
with.
Princess was Twilight Princess was very much so an Ocarina of Time
like
spiritual.
Yeah,
sequel.
it was the most Ocarina of Time like, which is funny.
They even had the bosses juke you out because you think they're gonna like the Water Temple boss. You're like, oh my god, it's just Morpha.
Oh
nope.
yeah, they did do
Morpheal.
that. Yeah. So I think
it was.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Seeing how we had 19 years of Ocarina of Time likes, they probably deserve more time to experiment in this extremely successful way.
It says here that Twilight Princess did not actually outsell Ocarina of Time.
What?
It did not?
Are you sure?
To be fair, it does count the Ocarina of Time 3D as well, but it also counts Zelda Twilight Princess HD.
For some reason, that didn't sell good at all. Twilight Princess HD didn't sell very.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. But yeah,
that's interesting. You're
Breath
right.
of the Wild was the
okay.
first Zelda game to outsell Ocarina of Time.
Okay, well,
It was
That's interesting.
good.
I think the first time that I had looked it up, it was like base version Ocarina versus base version Twilight Princess.
Mm-hmm.
Of which Twilight was able to pull ahead a little bit. But yeah,
Twilight Princess came close. But that's what I meant before when I said you always have that one game, that peak game, and then everything else after that is gonna be, because you see 14 million for Ocarina of Time, and then it's 6 for Majora's Mask, 3 for, or 6.8 for the Wind Waker. I'm not gonna count the 2D games because that's not fair.
Who plays 2D Zelda? Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently not us, because they won't make any.
It took until Breath of the Wild to dethrone Ocarina of Time in terms of sales, and it's probably gonna be a while before we get to that point again with Zelda, and that's fine. Zelda doesn't always have to be like the big milestone game. Twilight Princess, in my opinion, wasn't a big milestone Zelda, but it's one heck of a game.
Yes, I'm. Growing up, I was in a minority because it was cool to hate Twilight Princess at first. Of course,
Really?
now that it's like a legacy game, oh yeah, dude. But now that it's like a legacy game, it's like I feel like more people love it. Because it's like, oh, but if you had only played, because we have these snooty elite Zelda fans, of which I'm kind of one of, who are new people that are introduced to the fandom from Breath of the Wild and stuff, and they're talking about all these cool things about the game and how they kind of hint to previous games. And then you put on your snooty glasses and you're like, well, if you had played Twilight Princess, then you would understand, you see, that, XYZ, whatever. But
to
like,
be fair,
yeah.
some of them deserve to get some schooling, because there's also
Some of them, yes.
Because there's also been more and more people coming out of the woodworks being like, Ocarina of Time is overrated.
Ooh,
It doesn't deserve.
Oh, I hate those people. Oh man,
Dude, I had that same buddy that didn't like Breath of the Wild. He would he would tell me that just to see if I would throw hands. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be like, man, I'd play Ocarina if it didn't age so badly. Then he'd just kind of look at me, and I'm like, dude. But anyway, he kind of trained me to have like a tolerance for that, which everybody needs to have, because you know what? Opinions, everybody's got them.
You can tell that most of the people who have that kind of opinion, who lean towards that side of like Ocarina of Time is old and it doesn't have any value beyond nostalgia at this point. They're usually either people who are very young, who weren't even alive when the game came out, or people who played the game like years and years after the fact, after they've already experienced better games. Because there are better games right now than Ocarina of Time.
Allegedly.
No, I mean, objectively. Yeah, exactly. Allegedly, it's yet to be proven. But no, it depends on, obviously that's an argument for how do you value a game, or how do you value anything? Yeah, because, if something is better than something else, it's like, in what way, right? What criteria? That's why we have the Game of the Year award, but we also have all these other categories, because it's like, well, it's not so simple. Because in my opinion, I think that Ocarina of Time, the most timeless thing about the game is its story and its music. And those are the two things that matter, in my opinion, more than most other things when you're talking about art, when you're talking about a medium with which to reach a fandom. Because those are the things that leave impacts and that inspire, conversations. And I can't tell you how many friends I've made, whatever, based off of a mutual love of that game. Sorry, I know I'm getting kind of sappy, but it's like it depends. You know what I mean?
It's okay if you do it with
Ocarina. Right.
Yeah, it's. But to me, I do feel like a lot of aspects about Ocarina of Time have been surpassed over the years. I think the story is not the best Zelda story anymore. For example, the graphics, obviously not the best anymore.
What do you think is the best Zelda story?
I think Wind Waker's probably still one of the best Zelda stories.
I mean, that is fair.
Yeah, either Wind Waker or Skyward Sword. Despite its flaws in some of the time travel stuff, I still think the way they told the story in Skyward Sword was very good, and it's probably the most memorable.
So I don't think
part.
I agree, but I do look. It's more like how I felt about Attack on Titan. I think that Skyward Sword peaks higher than other things, but I don't think its pacing is as good, and I think that should go into the calculation as to whether it has a good story, because I think Ocarina's pacing is really good. Like it goes through its story beats, and those story beats appear at the right time more often than it does with Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword always had me.
I can see that.
Always had me like running back to go do some other stupid thing to do before I could continue on the story, when I should just be going into the dungeon. Let me in the dungeon to do that.
And then they have the audacity to put you back on the Elden volcano, whatever, and take your gear away when you just want to. Oh man, I hate that part of the game.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the overall narrative, not the pacing of the narrative, but what it's trying to tell you.
No, I get what you're saying.
I really appreciate. I'm not saying it is better than Ocarina of Time, but I do think there are Zelda games that have better told stories in some aspects. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because Ocarina of Time, you have to look at the game through the lens of when it first came out and what was around at the time. What the competition. You had Half-Life. You had the original Metal Gear for the PlayStation 1 and Tekken. And I think Baldur's Gate 1 was out at the time the time as well. Like, there's a reason why it had all these high scores and why it continues to have such high scores, because
it flattened the landscape. Nothing else competed around.
Well, it's
at
kind
that
of like
time.
the argument of Arnold Schwarzenegger being the GOAT, you know, as far as
Yeah.
like bodybuilding is concerned. Like objectively speaking, he you know, his techniques and his mass and his whatever has been surpassed greatly
Yes,
since then.
obviously.
But you know, why then has nobody else come anywhere close to having his impact?
Well,
You
because
know
he
what I
was
mean?
one of the first. And
Exactly.
he
So,
was,
but that does have value in and of itself, I think.
yeah,
The fact that
course.
he was what he was when he was, and the fact that Ocarina of Time was what it was when it was, still has value because that is still what leads to lasting impact, I think. And you know, and to me, I think that its story, I do think that its story is just really damn good, personally.
It is very
But
good for sure.
but you know, when you said Wind Waker, I just wanted to say that I do understand, because Wind Waker is also nigh unbeatable, I think.
It's just such a unique story too, the way it's set up, and it's so different from other Zelda games. It feels different. Maybe it's not. Maybe like if you really strip it down to its core, it's very much the same as a lot of other.
As long as
But
we
the-
can all agree that Twilight Princess is not better than Ocarina. I'm,
Then Ocarina.
Well,
yeah, than Ocarina story-wise.
Oh, I agree.
There we
I
go.
still think Twilight Princess has quite a good story,
No,
but
yes.
no, I think, yeah, I think
Well,
that Ocarina.
and even if
Have-
it was, it's so derivative that you cannot really. You have to take at least a couple of points off for that fact that it's so derivative of.
Right.
And to be fair, Ocarina of Time is a little bit derivative of A Link to the Past as well. But that was such
I
a
think it's
different
derivative
jump.
when it comes to patterns. You know, like patterns. And I'm sorry, I have a dog who's barking at somebody outside. But anyway, I think it's derivative of A Link to the Past when it comes to its story beats and the patterns behind them.
Yeah,
But of course the story itself, you know,
it's not similar necessarily.
it's not necessarily similar to A Link to the Past specifically because I mean, the only similarities there would be like Link meeting Zelda. You know what I mean,
And
and then
fighting
trying to
Ganon.
save the world. You know, like that's similar, arguably speaking, across all the Zelda games, even Wind Waker. You know,
But
even
it
though
doesn't-
Zelda didn't know
it
she was
doesn't have
Zelda.
like a young Link and an old Link. It doesn't have the.
Yeah,
that-
that
that
right there,
time
that was
travel
innovative as hell. Like that,
And
that
it's a
I
main
mean, they were
theme
like,
too.
you what?
And it's a main theme that they kind of weave into the
Right.
whole story as well. The whole idea of time being cruel because it
Yeah,
moves and creeps by.
Sheik's speeches.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah. Sheik's quotes are, that's the true timeless, thing from Ocarina of Time is just freaking everything that Sheik says. It's beautiful.
And she's the best twist in any Zelda game.
She?
probably.
What do you mean?
I don't know what you're talking about. No
Yeah,
spoilers.
I don't know.
I don't know.
By the way, have y'all seen Matt Pat's? I guess it's not his most recent video anymore, but he did a Zelda theory
For
You did?
for what?
for Wind Waker. He says, I watched a little bit of it. The reason why I'll get to why I'm bringing it up, but I watched a little bit of it, and it's the theory about the hero of Winds not being the reincarnation of the spirit of the hero, which is a theory that I've made several times before. I think many people have made that before. It's actually one that I quite like.
Well, what is he
actually.
then?
He's just a kid.
Oh,
Like he's just
Just
a
a
kid
brave
who,
kid?
Yeah, he's just a brave kid who Ganondorf was unfortunate enough to steal his sister. Because it just kind of inspired him to just go save the world, I guess. But anyway, obviously it is just a theory, though. It's not proven at all. But I brought it up because all of Matt Pat's other Zelda theories do well, performance-wise. But
Mhm.
this one, like, it's been a week, and it still hasn't crossed the 1 million view threshold, which is very, very, very rare for that channel. Like, it's the only one that hasn't crossed the 1 million view threshold.
and do you think it's
in
just?
a couple of days or a week?
Do you think that's because
Well,
there's a
I
general
think-
trend downward in Zelda interest?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah. I think that when you have, the behemoth channels like Game Theory, like you can literally look at their video performance and tell what is trending and what is not. And it's funny
he's
because
also very
MatPat,
knowledgeable about trends, right? Like he
yeah,
studies.
yeah, yeah. The dude is a
actively studies
genius. He's a genius, man. Like before he started game theory, which has been over a decade ago now. Before he started that, he was advising other YouTubers on how to YouTube, like how to understand the algorithm. Back when YouTube was a baby. So he's been like he's a genius, but he decided to do this video because the Zelda movie was announced, and that will have an impact on the trends of the internet. But it, like, I wouldn't say it backfired, obviously, but I'm just saying it's like you can see, you can see. Anyway,
Yeah, it's undeniable that there is a downward trend currently. And
yeah, but
not,
it's across Zelda, the franchise.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
on that sad note, I think we should probably call it a day. I got to get going soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I just glanced at the time. Honestly, you guys are both great conversation. I had no idea it had almost been 3 hours.
Yeah, this is
same here.
You guys are too good at this. Like I was like, I'm pretty sure that both of you were like the best Zelda performing videos, the ones that you two were on, podcast wise. Is like, no, these guys are too good. They suck you in. I shouldn't have put them both together.
Well, dude, you should be a fly on the wall in just our calls and stuff. Like I think we're both just similar with a lot of our takes on our spicy takes on stuff. It's like I'll say something or he'll say something, and it'll be like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna land. And it's like, no, it landed. In fact, I agree. In fact, here's why. And it's like you just kind of go on. And the same to you, actually. It's I don't think we disagree on anything.
Not so far.
No.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Perfect echo chamber. Let's go.
We love it.
All right. This has been the Yggdrasil podcast. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you too for coming.